Nation. Sports Hub headlines.
It's all over for the Celtics. First time they've lost a series up 3-1. They fell to the Sixers last night, 109-100. Sixers advance to face the Knicks. Celtics are done. They missed 9 shots in a row in the final 5 minutes of the game. Red Sox and Astros scoreless headed to the second inning over at Fenway Park. Ranger Suarez on the mound for Boston. Trevor Story out of the lineup today. Revolution with a 1-0 win over Charlotte last night. Bruins had their breakup day today at Warrior Ice Arena, including the annual list of injuries coming out at the end of the year. Dolloff and Michael Hurley. We'll have more on that coming up shortly. And 3 Game 7s across basketball and hockey today. In the NBA, Magic and the Pistons, Cavs versus the Raptors. In the NHL, the Lightning take on the Canadiens in Game 7. Headlines are brought to you by Boston Prolotherapy. Don't let joint pain keep you off the court, course, or trail. Eliminate that pain with Dr. Franke of Boston Prolotherapy. I'm Matt McCarthy on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Michael Hurley has you next in an hour.
But he's got a breakaway. To the backhand. Throws it in front. Coming to the spot.
The Sports Hub. No matter what team, no matter what player, no matter what coach, no matter what game, it all happens here. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Final 6 seconds. Pritchard will launch a 3. It is no good. The ball appropriately enough in the hands of Maxey. And a season that began with 3 straight losses that surprised nobody ends with 3 straight losses nobody saw coming. And the simply extraordinary, feel-good 83 games that came in between for the moment become consigned to an afterthought and a feeling right now that is anything but. For the first time in franchise history, the Celtics lose a 3-1 series lead, and for the first time in their franchise history, the Sixers come from 3-1 down and in the process exercise 44 years of demons and finally eliminate the Celtics. The final score in Game 7, Philadelphia 109, Boston 100.
.98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff here with Michael Hurley until 5 o'clock. And we are coming here on the heels of one of the more disappointing defeats in recent memory for Boston sports. Hurley, good to see you today, though.
Is it? Let's start with this. You know, won the men's league game today, this morning.
Oh, there you go.
So there's one positive in Boston sports. And that will be it for the rest of the afternoon.
There's one Massachusetts team has won something this week. So that's good to know. That's good to know. Hurley, this weekend has made me think back to our competitor, back when they were the only show in town. I don't know, did you ever work there?
No,
our competitor? Okay, but did you listen?
Of course. I was in my dad's car all the time.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, going to school as a kid. Yeah, we would listen to the big show, Ordway, who was active himself on Twitter, reacting to that Celtics game last night. There was a common refrain on that station. They ruined my summer. This was a Red Sox thing mainly, because this predates breaking the curse. But even they probably said it in 2004. Like they probably ran through that phrase a lot. Like as soon as they start to falter in June, July, the callers come in. They ruined my summer, Glenn, and I don't blame them. But that's how it feels like it's going across the city. The Celtics are just the latest nail in the coffin, but I look at this show today, Hurley, as a ruined summer Sunday.
We didn't even get to the summer. We didn't even get there.
Well, the first day of summer is like June 23rd, June 21st, something like that.
But it's literally like 40 degrees and raining sideways today, just to really rub it in. Like, yeah, your Bruins lost. Yeah, your Celtics lost. Yeah, your Red Sox, they're not good. But at least in May, on the 3rd of May, you can have a 40-degree, windy, cloudy, rainy day to enjoy. Yeah, of course. No, you go out on the nice, cold, gray, rainy day. That's who doesn't like that in Boston? So the Celtics blow a 3-1 series lead for the first time in franchise history. They lose to the 76ers for the first time since I only knew this because Ordway was on Twitter. It's like, I have not been this disappointed since the Celtics last lost to the Sixers in 1982. I called that game with John and Most on WRKO. I kind of long for those days at this point after that game last night early. 1982. And it's just, I mean, we have a lot to get into, and this is not even near the top of the list, but the fact that it was Joel Embiid, a known Game 7 if choker's too strong, underperformer. How about that? That's the politest way.
Yeah.
It's a Sixers team that can get under your skin. That you have traditionally, no matter your faults, no matter your flaws, you could at least rise up in these moments and say, all right, little brother, go back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And now, back-to-back years, you have these embarrassing exits against teams you should have never lost to. And you got Embiid quieting the crowd in Boston. Like, it was like bizarro world last night from start to finish.
For a good, 2.5, 3 quarters, it felt like Embiid was sort of exercising some demons there. Not just for himself, but for the Sixers, who, the Celtics have owned them, not just recent years with the current iteration of the team, but over decades. They've played so many playoff series and then took over 40 years for the Sixers to finally get one on them. And they did it in Boston. And even still, Hurley, Embiid tried to choke that game away. Celtics basically out-choked them. Because we can get into all the details of the game if you want. And you out there, if you want to call in and get into the details if you want, you can call in too, 617-779-0985. We're obviously starting with the Celtics after that loss last night. It got to 99-98 with 3.5 minutes left. Despite all their problems throughout that game, they got it down to 1 point. I'm gonna run through the ensuing possessions real quick for you, Hurley.
I love this. This was one of the most. This was nails on a chalkboard for 3.5 minutes of basketball.
Celtics make it 99-98 with 3:49 left. Embiid misses. Brown misses. An open, call it minimally contested 3. He was not touched. He had basically an open look, missed. Embiid misses again. Brown misses again. This time from about the top of the key. So this is a 2-point shot. He misses that. George misses. Brown blocks him. Yeah. I love that. I was like, okay, maybe that's the spark they need to get there at the end.
That was a nice block.
Brown gets a really nice, potentially very big clutch moment for him with that block. Brings up the ball, kicks it out to Pritchard instead of passing down to a wide open Neemias Queta down by the hoop. Pritchard misses an open corner 3. Now, if there's anyone I'm going to get on for missing a 3, especially an open one, it's Peyton Pritchard. He's probably the one guy on the team you say that is his number one biggest strength is shooting the 3. So that was not ideal.
That was the one in this whole sequence where it goes up and you're like, well, that one's going in.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So they had 3 chances with down just 1 to take the lead. And 2 of those chances, they take 3-pointers, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me mathematically, even though this is apparently a mathematics-based approach, taking all these 3-pointers. So after that, Tyrese Maxey finally, someone gets some points on the board. Maxey's like, someone's got to do something here. Drives down, lays it in. So now it's a 3-point game. Brown brings it back up, makes a nice move to get an open look from, just inside the paint. Bricks it. Wide open look, about 10, 11 feet away, maybe misses it. Maxey gets the ball back, drives it in, lays it in again. Now it's a 5-point game. Now we're getting real nervous because we're getting down to the final minute. You're down 5.
Still, with the open looks in the Celtics' philosophy, they will eventually score on them. That's just how it works mathematically.
Yeah, no. Look, they got 60 seconds. That's a lot of seconds. If you were to make a list of seconds, like 60 is a long list, right? So Maxey drives it in, lays it in again, makes it 103-98. Sam Hauser chucks it. Just an embarrassing chuck that had no chance of going in, I thought. Noah Eagle on the call is like, tough 3 as he's taking it. Very awkward-looking 3-pointer with at least one guy. Might have had 2 guys on him on that play. Just an unbelievably bad decision to even get to that spot, let alone to take that shot.
But still, a stop. You didn't need a foul at that point. Still can win the game with some defense and some makes.
Right. And again, it's a 5-point game with just under a minute. Game is far from over. And what do? They chuck up 3 more just unbelievably lazy, ill-advised 3-point shots. I don't know if they were all 3-pointers, but just chaos, chucking it up there, desperation prayers.
Panic.
And that, to me, I honestly put that last minute on Joe Mazzulla. I don't put that necessarily on the players because if you rewind, 5-6 years, who probably would have had a nice little plan, a couple little plays drawn up to maybe get a quick basket, get a timeout, move the ball up, get a stop, get another basket.
The guy upstairs?
Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens would have had a plan for that final minute, down 5. And what was the Celtics' plan? What was Mazzulla's plan? Just throw it up there. It'll go in. You got to make your shots, as Mazzulla said after the game.
I didn't have this thought last night, but as you go through it there and knowing what's needed every time and still going for the 3 ball and still going for those desperation heaves when you have a minute left, it's similar in a way, and they're not the same caliber team. Super Bowl 42, the undefeated Patriots just needing a field goal to tie the game, just yeeting it as if they need the 80-yard touchdown and they don't move the ball and the game ends. And it's just like, did you know you could drive the ball and you had a full minute and like a timeout? Like you could have run an offense and kept this game going.
Yeah.
Same thing here. You could have passed it to Keita and taken a lead, and then you know what? I don't hate your spot that you're in if you're up 1.
The lack of strategy, the lack of situational awareness, the lack of situational preparedness is just infuriating with this team. And I don't want to use the Tatum excuse. I don't know if anyone's out there using the excuse, well, they didn't have Jason Tatum. What do you want? We're going to get into Jason Tatum. That whole very confusing, weird situation with the injury there. I'm not sure they even would have won with Tatum last night the way they were playing. And the frustrating part, Hurley?
Let me just jump in.
What?
Then you hit me with that frustrating part. One area that he would have helped significantly is that he is not Ron Harper or Baylor Shireman. So 1/5 of your starting lineup, just by virtue of him standing on the court, would have improved the way that they started that game, because that starting lineup was a joke.
Yes, I think your wins above replacement skyrockets if you put in Jason Tatum over a Luka Garza, a Baylor Shireman.
Ron Harper Jr. Unbelievable.
Ron Harper Sr. was on Twitter was it today? It might have been today, where he's like, why are they taking so many threes? This is like the whole country is saying this now. There's people on Twitter, it's like, my 2-year-old's asking why they're shooting too many threes. He can't even talk yet. He can't even say more than 2 words, and he's saying, why so many threes? It's unbelievable with this team. It's just unbelievable that, like, they got back in that game when they made some defensive adjustments. I give them credit for the defensive adjustments. Defensively, they weren't terrible last night. They started playing some zone, and the Sixers got frustrated. They came right back. They came back because they were playing tougher defense, and they started just driving to the hoop, laying it in. What is so bad about that? And it's just, you have to do that at some point in a 7-game series, too. It's just, the sample size is too small. The talent level, the competition is too high. You're most likely going up against another good coach, and like, say what you want about Nick Nurse, I think he's a good coach, and like his strength is probably tactician type stuff. He's not one of these like motivator types, right?
Right. He's annoying as hell. He's a coach you want to be able to be better than, and you weren't. Like, he outcoached as soon as Embiid came back. Even after, I think it was game 5 or 6, Mazzulla was asked, how does Embiid change what you do? How much does it make you have to adjust? And he was just like, you got to make shots. No, you have to figure out a way to defend this guy who you have no answers for, and he didn't.
Yeah, part of me says, like, yes, you got to make some shots. Like, I look at Jaylen Brown late in that game. I look at that Pritchard missed 3. Like, there were some shots in there. Like, yes, you got to make them. But like, is he really looking at that flurry of just chucking it up there in the final minute and saying, well, you got to make some of those? Like, what? Why do we even have a coach?
How many playoff series are you going to lose where you're going to go up and feel all good because had you made your open looks, you would have won? Maybe that is a sign, as you continually struggle to win series against teams that are not as good as you, that philosophy is not a successful one.
Exactly. 617-779-0985. We're starting Celtics, and if there's any Bruins fans out there listening, we are going to get into the Bruins at some point today, too.
You were there the other night, right?
I was there the other night, boots on the ground. I was there at all 3 home games. That was a good time.
How was the tension in that Friday night? Like, I know what it's like after a bad Bruins loss. How did it stack up?
You could cut it with a knife, Hurley. Yeah. You could cut the tension with a knife. So we are going to get into that at some point. They're both on the table. If you want to call in, talk about whatever you want. All 4 Boston sports teams are having a terrible time right now. So really anything you want, anything about your summer being ruined, give us a call. We're going to take a quick break here and come right back. It's Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports, 98.5.
great looks by Boston. You can just feel the tension right now in every possession. That's a match he wants with Maxey here. Quarter shoot. Brown will fend off. He went right into Embiid. Embiid is hurt as he gets the rebound. Gotta go quick. Brown will pull. Way off. Rebound. Back to Brown. Right on the outside. No good. And the rebound of Maxey with 20 seconds to play. He's fouled in the backcourt.
Boston was 32-0 when leading 3-1 in a playoff series until tonight. Final 5 seconds.
Missed shots. It's a little misleading because it's like
it was really 7.
a lot of those were like just chucking it up at the end. But again, like that does speak to having no plan for the end of that game, even though it was only 5 points. You didn't need to just chuck up a bunch of threes. You could have figured something out if you had a plan, if you had any kind of strategy other than just shoot as many threes as possible. But now that we got 2 years of this, and look, going into the playoffs early, this wasn't even about winning another championship this year. I'm not even sure it was about getting to the finals. Like if they got to the conference finals, then they lost to Detroit, or even if they lost to the Knicks again, and it was a hard-fought 7-game series. Like that's the sort of thing. You see how it looks, you see how it goes, and then you can assess. I didn't need them to get to the finals. I didn't need them to blow through the East. And, you get to that game last night, and obviously the starting lineup notwithstanding, the roster disparity was pretty striking. Like, you take Tatum out, and then all of a sudden you get the Sixers with a fully healthy Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey for the first time against the Celtics that year. That was the first time we saw that all year. It's like, all of a sudden, it's like, wow, the Sixers actually might have the better roster right now, the way this is going. But that was the opportunity. This is you see the face you're making. Let me land the plane here.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
This was Joe Mazzulla's opportunity to prove that he learned from last year and that he's going to make the right adjustments. He's going to make up for the lack of talent that he has. His depth in his roster. He's going to make up for the lack of Jason Tatum. He's going to do basically what he did throughout the regular season, which was, I don't know if they overachieved, but I don't think anyone had them winning 56 games and the second seed. I thought they were still, a top half of the conference team, playoff team, that whole thing, even without Tatum. This was Joe Mazzulla's opportunity to prove that he has learned from last year. He's gotten better. He knows what it takes to do what he has to do as a coach to win every game and win as many games as possible in a 7-game series. And it feels like he learned nothing. Feels like we're at the definition of insanity stage with Joe Mazzulla. He's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think we already knew he kind of had a little bit of a screw loose early. Now I think he might legitimately be insane. If he's coming out there doing the same thing as he did last year, basically, and then coming after the game. I don't know if you have the cuts, Jeff, but he said after the game something like,
"It's just because you're stuck in an either or, win or lose thing. You're not into the duality.
The duality
takes place within man. When the Celtics won, he still felt empty. So winning, losing, you're too caught up in that. You don't understand what you're talking about."
Jeff, pull up Duality by Slipknot for the next rejoin, by the way. Yeah, no, the treatise about duality. And he said something like, I felt just as empty when we won the championship as when we lost. It's like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. Don't say that. Don't come out and say that. Not in this city.
I wonder how much of that is performance, because when he got to the podium, it looked like he had been crying. It looked like he had tears in his eyes. So I don't know how much of this is a performance, but if it is, I would say shelve that one. No one wants that after Game 7.
I think he has like a little bit of, David Goggins?
No.
He's like one of these like motivational type guys where his whole thing is like, oh, you're down on your luck, you're broke, you're homeless, you have no family, you have no life. Good. That's an opportunity for you to get better. That's basically his whole thing. Mazzulla has a little bit of that, and it's like, oh, I'm glad we lost. I'm glad we lost this series. It's a learning experience. Well, doesn't feel like you learned anything, Joe.
Yeah. And I don't know if you asked me this on the air or off the air. The most to blame? Did we?
Yes. No, let me do that now. I'm going to do another classic Boston radio trope. I think this goes back to Eddie Andelman. The blame pie. Yeah. The blame pie. I think there's plenty of pie to go around for last night. There's plenty of pie to go around for blowing the lead. There's plenty of pie to go around for the series. There's plenty of pie to go around for the roster. Plenty of pie to go around for the season. Let's start with last night, though. Who do you blame the most for last night, Hurley?
To me, it's the head coach because, again, I mentioned the starting lineup. it was comical to come out with that. It was offensive to the sport of basketball. It was offensive to the 76ers to come out with 3 bench players. And I know that the one spark you got, I think I was in here Friday and jokingly said to Jim Murray and Cerrone, like, maybe start the bench, because they were the only ones that gave you anything game 6. To be clear, that was a joke, because you don't do that in the NBA. You do not start your bench players, and it put them in a 17-6 hole early. And you were kind of lucky to only be down 11, given that you had nobody on the floor who could score. You had 3 starters score 0 combined points for the first time since starters have been tracked. So that is the biggest thing, and it's if that was it alone, then whatever. But I have this tweet up here from Julian Edlow of DraftKings. So he pointed this out. Did you see this one?
I don't think so.
This is now the third time the Celtics have lost a series under Mazzulla when they were minus 500 or better.
Oh, I did see this, yes.
So that was Miami 3 years ago. That was the Knicks last year. They were minus 800 favorites against the Knicks last year. We all agree that was a complete catastrophe. This year they were minus 900 favorites to win this series. And I'm guessing after game 1, when they won by 30 points, it was probably off the board. Not even worth gambling. Not even worth betting. And you can't do that in a short window. And yes, you could come back and you could say, Mike Hurley, you big dummy. They won a championship in between those. I've come around on the easy schedule, easy path. Like, to me, anyone harping on that after that year was being a bozo and kind of a loser. Like, oh, you had the Heat without Butler. You had, who else was out that year? Donovan Mitchell missed a couple games in the Cleveland series.
I think they only played 5 games in every series or something like that.
and it was late, and you're like, well, it's still a championship, it's still a banner. I am reevaluating everything. That has so much less sway than it used to because of the 3 years surrounding it.
Yeah, a banner is a banner. A championship is a championship. I just think now that we have the other 3 years around it to compare it to, the banner feels more like an outlier. And I want to give Joe Murray credit, who was on before us. He said last year they're front runners, but I think they could front run their way to a championship, and he was right. I think that's the only way that this team, this current iteration, can win it all, though. I don't trust them at all in these big, close games, and I think we saw it again last night. Like, they can only win if they blow you away. If the threes fall for literally everybody, they win by 30. They shoot 45, 50% from 3 as a team. Like, that's the only way they can win, which is very frustrating because I think they've had the talent to win in different ways. They've had the talent to adjust in games for sure. I feel like they've had the talent to adjust to the opponent and beat you any way they can, not just throw up the threes no matter what. Like, we have all these national pundits, Charles Barkley, guys that have played in the league and have been watching this league, but they're so confused. They're like, why do they keep doing this? Like, I think was it Reggie Miller last night where there were possessions at the time. It's like, you don't have to do this, guys.
Barkley the other night was like, can't they do something else?
Yeah, I think it was Barkley. It was like, Tatum and Brown are way better than guys that just rely on threes.
But so to me, like, I answered your question with Mazzulla, but over the course of that answer, it sort of delved into this Brown-Tatum duo just not being the guys that we kind of expected or thought they'd be. And I'd go back even to go back to the Udoka period. Excuse me, hard for me to say there. They beat the Heat in 7 games, remember, that last year to get to the finals? Only because Max Strus's foot was ruled to have been out of bounds before he hit a 3. Yeah. They were going to lose that game 7. So, like, these biggest moments, and even the year, what year was it? The year they lost to the Heat, so that was 23. They shouldn't have, Tatum gets hurt at the start of game 7, and you kind of go, kablooey. They really had no business being in that game 7 if not for Derek White's ridiculous game 6 tip-in on a terrible end-of-game possession by Marcus Smart. So it's like, these big moments, they do have a championship. Hats off, salute you. There are more instances of this core, we'll call it the 2-man core, and everyone else, is who they are, coming up short in these big moments. And now you can't even get out of the first round now.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, the fact that even though, like, we went over the roster differences as it evolved into the game 7, it's kind of the inverse of what you were just saying about they had no business being in the game. There shouldn't have even been a game 7. They shouldn't have even gotten to game 6, let alone game 7. Tatum shouldn't have even been hurt. There shouldn't have even been a chance. He should have been sitting on his couch watching the rest of the playoffs instead of, even worrying about game 6 or game 7. They had a 13-point lead in the third quarter of game 5, and they blew that. And, like, did the Sixers come back and win that game by double digits? Like, inexcusable. I wonder what the win probability of the series was. I wonder what the betting was at that moment with like 10 minutes left in the third quarter. They're up 13 in Game 5. They had to be like minus 15,000 or something.
And they won that
to win
game
the series.
The Sixers won that game by 16 points.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Yeah, and like I'm not a gambling expert either, but if there's anyone out there, just so you know, minus 900 odds, those are high.
You got to bet $900 to win 100, which I'm not a financial advisor. You should probably never do that.
Yeah, you should refrain from that bet. 617-779-0985. I just reflexively gave the phone number, but we are working through some technical difficulties. You'll have to bear with us. Jeff Williams working hard behind the glass to try to figure that out. We're not in the business of turning away callers today, so we're going to try our best, and hopefully we can figure that out.
I say we go unscreened.
Jeff said something about unscreened callers.
I kind of like that.
I'm a little on edge about that. Jeff, does it mean unscreened? Does that mean I don't even know the name or where the guy is?
You should know the name. I mean, the caller ID will show the name at least on your end, and you can go from there. You just don't know what they want to talk about.
Okay.
I think we got an idea.
We'll have an idea, and just keep the finger on the dump button, I guess. All right, so we're going to take another quick break here. We're going to come back and continue the conversation here. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports.
today. That's Jeff Williams behind the glass, following orders, bringing up Slipknot. Good job there. Jeff's a pro's pro. Feels like we might have figured out a system to make the calls work. Yeah, we're making it work with what we got here, folks. And so we do have a call on the line. I'm going to get right to you. Eric in Lowell on the Celtics last night. Go ahead, Eric.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. What's up?
Cool. I agree with you guys. It should have never came to a Game 7, but it did. And the fact you're down 1 point in the fourth quarter and you do back-to-back-to-back three-pointers, it's embarrassing. We're talking about Jaylen Brown as a potential MVP. Drive the ball. It's inexcusable. I think Joe Mazzulla's job has to be on the line, or at least talked about.
All right, thanks, Eric. And yeah, that is sort of where I go with it, is that all the quibbles we can have about how they got to that point, and they should have never been at that point in the first place. At the end of the day, you're chipping away, and you're down to 1 point with 3.5 minutes left, and then that's what they come up with offensively. That's just inexcusable. And then you get to the final minute, and again, nothing to draw up, no kind of X's and O's plan, which is, you feel like even, third, fourth year, whatever it is for Mazzulla as a head coach, he'd have something figured out by then. It feels like there's no actual planning going on as far as who they're playing, how he deploys his personnel, which is ironic because Mazzulla said after the game, like when he was asked about the threes, like, we're going to play to the strengths of our players, or whatever he said, like, we're going to play to our strength of our players, whoever we have. If we have another big, we trade for Giannis, he didn't say this, but if he trades for Giannis, they'll shoot more twos. I'll believe that when I see it. But after he says that, I thought, wait, who on the team, other than Peyton Pritchard, who on the team do you look at and says his biggest strength is shooting threes?
Hauser.
White.
Well,
no, is Derek White known as just a 3-point shooter? I don't
become, but certainly has a well-rounded game. But yeah, Pritchard, Hauser, sharpshooters.
I don't think Derek White needs to shoot threes to be successful. I think that's almost borderline. They've almost borderline ruined him offensively. He had a terrible season shooting wise. And I know he started hot last night, so that was good that the shots started to fall for him. But that's not his game. Like he's a two-way guy. He can score from inside the 3-point line. He doesn't need to rely on threes. A guy like Pritchard, Hauser, they gotta shoot more threes. Baylor Shireman, probably a guy that he's gonna make his bones as a 3-point shooter. But Tatum and Brown, they can score from anywhere. They don't need to rely on threes. To harken back to what Charles Barkley was saying about him earlier in the week, and Reggie Miller last night was like, aren't they gonna try something else? Like they didn't even know what to say. They were borderline speechless at the way they ran that offense last night. It's just mind-boggling that they would continue to take that approach, especially when the shots aren't falling. And I feel like that's one of the most basic tenets of NBA playoff basketball. It's a game of runs as it is. The other team's going on a run. Your current approach isn't working. Try something else. And I know despite the injuries, Tatum being out, they were a little bit limited as far as what they could do and how they could deploy everybody. But how do you not have a plan B? It feels like he has plan A, and it stops there.
And I would throw in the recognition that Joel Embiid had multiple people fall into his knee last night. And he's flexing his knee. There was a time he barely made it down the court. You've got to have that sort of killer instinct to say, he's vulnerable right now. There's blood in the water. We're going at his chest, and he will foul you. And instead, you're chucking up threes. You're helping them when their rim protector is literally limping up and down the court in crunch time of Game 7. And you're like, well, we are what we are. We're good. They were open looks.
Right.
You cannot hang a banner for open looks that you didn't hit. And now more often than not, that's been the case. Those open looks have driven you to the end of your season. And the fact that I can't think of any sort of situation where you could see a team not recognizing a weakness like that. Like in a hockey game, the goalie is favoring his leg and can't push off. You're going to try to beat that. Ernie Adams, now he got it wrong, saying Julio Jones can't push off and break on those left out-breaking routes. Leave him alone. Cheat in. That was incorrect. But you're always looking for that edge. And when he's just literally limping and you don't go after it. And I wonder, Matt, does this change how Celtics fans, it changes how I view Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I know Tatum didn't play last night, which is a story we should get to. Does this change the way Celtics fans feel about them because you have Joel Embiid on the other side, because you have Paul George on the other side? Guys known for their failures in these moments, you just outfailed them in Game 7. Does that change how you feel about your guys?
I hope it does. I mean, the ones that are able to look at it a little more objectively and critically, which I think true fans get mad and look at it objectively sometimes. You know, I can't take you seriously if everything is looked through rose-colored glasses. I can't take you seriously the other way, where everything sucks all the time no matter what. But you gotta look at this with a critical eye at this point. Like, I can't take you seriously if you're just one of these green teamers who calls in and says, well, what do you want? It was a gap year. Tatum's, this is all gravy. They found money. They shed all that payroll. What do you want them to do? What do you want Mazzulla to do with the roster you had? Like, that's just empty excuse making and coping for what just happened last night. And so I don't want to hear that. I hope we don't hear too much of that over the next week from Celtics fans. But yeah, that you should look at it differently. And to circle back to the blame pie, Hurley, I give the biggest slice of the blame pie to Jaylen Brown last night, because this is a guy that basically campaigned for himself to be MVP. He's referred to himself as one of the best two-way players in the league. And I mean, he obviously had an excellent regular season. He should be, he should get votes for MVP and all that. But that's a regular season award. And we talked about the opportunity that Mazzulla had this series. This is a huge opportunity for Jaylen Brown to prove that he could be the guy to carry the team and bring them to the promised land at the end of that game. And he's missing open looks at the very end. And there's the stat. I don't know if this is on the list of tweets you got, but there was the tweet about the Celtics stats with and without Jaylen Brown on the floor.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Which, I mean, that might be a little misleading, too, because look at what he's surrounded by at that point last night. But
I believe minus 66 with Jaylen Brown on the court over the last 3 games. Plus 26 without.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that speaks more to his offensive game, probably, because he turns the ball over too much still. Like, I believe in him as a defender. He had that big block late in the game. But he's not the greatest facilitator.
He's got his offensive move is to push off.
Yeah.
When they call that, like they did in Game 6, he doesn't know what to do.
He got the push off last night on Maxey. They didn't call it, and he bricked it.
Yeah.
Bricked it wide open from 10 feet away in the paint. And so that was his opportunity to really, especially that block. If he made that block and then made the shot at the other end, that's like a signature moment for him. And he blew it. I think he totally blew it last night. And, maybe it's not the most fair, because I never thought Jaylen Brown was truly like a number one on a championship team. But this is a guy that sort of carries himself that way and seems to believe that about himself.
Well,
and he didn't live up to his own billing last night. That's why I can't get past the way he played in the final few minutes of that game.
And it's funny because he's 2 years ago Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and I was of the belief, like the finals numbers, you could have made the case for Tatum. I made the case for Tatum because he's the better player, and Brown gets the recognition, and a lot of people might have took that and said, like, look, he's your clutch guy. He's your guy in these big moments. And now it's Game 7. Tatum bows out, which is its own issue. But Brown's there, and at the podium, he's like, well, no, Superstar wasn't in. That would have helped.
Yeah,
you can't do it both ways. You really, I mean, it is obviously a factor. But guess what? In the fourth quarter, with 3 minutes left, you're well aware that Jason Tatum is not coming back in. Like, you've been playing this game all night. You have to finish it, and the ball is in your hands, and you didn't.
Yeah, there was the comment on Tatum, which was interesting. We still haven't gotten into any of that with the Tatum injury, that whole mystery. But he was also calling out Joel Embiid for flopping last night.
What does that get you? That helps you in Game 4 if you're trying to get calls in Game 5.
Exactly. That's like, what? Come on, dude. Just put it to the side.
He's waiting for Game 8. He's going to get the good whistle.
If you're a true, winner, leader, that whole thing, like, you don't, even if that's what you believe, it's fine if that's what you believe, but you don't come out and say that. That feels like weak excuse making after you came up short at the end of the game. That's how I took that comment from Jaylen Brown. All right, Jim in Connecticut on the Celtics. What's up, Jim?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Sure.
Hey, I had a few thoughts. Number one, I see Joe Mazzulla as the Celtics' clear and present danger. Brad Stevens needs to take some accountability for the play style, which has cost his team several early playoff exits. Tatum was never going to play in Game 7 when they announced he was questionable, and there was people saying that was just a ploy to indicate that maybe he wouldn't be able to get through the whole game. I don't think he was ever going to play because he didn't want to lose and he didn't want to get criticized, so that's an issue. And I think significant changes required across this coaching and roster. The construction of that roster is not what it needs to be. The coaching isn't what it needs to be. And this version of Celtics has vastly underperformed.
All right, thanks, Jim. And yeah, we haven't gotten into the big picture of it yet, which we will. But yeah, the Tatum thing is another one. Like, we need to get into that Tatum injury story. I feel like we got to have like a fresh segment to start that off. But just there's a lot of different things. I feel like that's why I wanted to do blame pie early, because it's really hard to pin down one thing for why they lost that series. And like the Stevens thing, like, I'm not sure that's Stevens' fault. I feel like Stevens has done an outstanding job since he's become GM. He's not afraid to make changes. I think there will be changes. Hopefully there's changes. If they did, you can't just run it back after what they did with the roster they have and Mazzulla. You can't just run it back. No. So changes need to be made, but I'm not sure how much I want to get on Brad Stevens for this, other than maybe it could have brought in a real big, maybe, before the season instead of...
Maybe like Vucevic, and then in Game 7 he might be able to play more than 0 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. Vucevic didn't play at all.
Did not play. I saw him shaking hands after the game. I'm like, wait a second. I have not seen him for a second tonight, and double-checked, and sure enough, he hadn't. Do you want one more crazy stat here for you?
Sure.
This one's from ESPN Insights. You ready?
Yep.
Celtics are the second team in NBA history to lose a playoff series despite multiple 30-point wins in the series. The last time a team had won 2 or more games in a series by 30 or more points and lost, it was the 1959 Hawks. 1959.
Was that like the St. Louis Hawks or something like that?
Probably. It was St. Louis Hawks.
Oh, I was just guessing.
Yeah.
That's true. Wow.
I could tell you who they...
nailed it.
I could tell you who they lost to, but...
Was that even an NBA team? It must have been.
They had a sick logo. It looks like a teenager drew it. But
this is before even Bill Russell?
They lost to the Minneapolis Lakers, 4-2.
Was Bill Russell even in the 1959? He must have been by that point.
Yeah.
But the Celtics had won how many championships by 1959?
That one, for sure.
I got my timeline. I don't know the exact timelines of the Russell championships.
The Celtics were... That was their second championship year.
Okay, so the Celtics had exactly 2 banners the last time something like that happened.
Technically one, because they had won that year. So
true.
Really, the Celtics were one-time champions the last time a team won 2 games by 30 points and lost a series. And I guess the message there is you are so much better than that other team when you win twice by 30 points.
I think it's a reflection of the approach. Like the three, if all you're doing is chucking up threes, you're either blowing the team away because they're draining, or they're not falling, and it just goes the other way. Like, I feel like you can't. They're too talented, and they got 2 of the best players in the NBA. I don't see the reason to rely on that approach. It just doesn't make sense, especially when you get to this time of year, and you do have to win games in different ways. You do have to make in-game adjustments. It's not like the regular season. And Joe Mazzulla apparently still doesn't get that. 617-779-0985. I see you guys on the line. John, Jack, Bill, we're going to come back. We're going to blow through your calls when we come back, continue the Celtics conversation. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
People do anything for a cold beer. That's why the Coors Light Mountains turn blue, to tell you when your beer...
Right to the phones. I'm not going to quite be Felger about this, but you're going to be relatively quick because we're going to be hitting the break. This is a commercial-free segment here. So we're going to start with John in the car. Go ahead, John.
I am not a Celtics fan. Never have been. So let me preference the call that way.
Sure.
But I always respected them with Bird and Parrish and McHale. And I hate this team. They are the most unlikable group of guys to watch, especially when they all start pointing the fingers about what. It's never we as a unit have to be better. Everybody's always got to, well, if this happened, if that happened. I never hear anybody on that team stand up and say, I sucked and I needed to be better, and that's why we're in the position we're in. I watched Joel Embiid in a wrestling hole trying to get his appendicitis thing dealt with, and he had both knees blown out, and he's limping around like a 50-year-old man. And at no point in time did I see him question anything other than what was best for the team. I get none of that. And in my opinion, it starts with that imbecile coach they got that is swearing by sabermetrics in basketball. Is there anything more ridiculous than sabermetrics in basketball? 2 points is better than no points, you stumbling idiot. He has to go immediately.
Thanks, John. Great call. Yeah,
I have a lot for not being a Celtics fan.
I know. Yeah, he's very invested for a non. I wanted to ask him who he actually roots for. Maybe he's a Knicks fan or something. I know he roots for the Meteor. Yeah, that's honestly maybe even more disappointing than how Jaylen Brown finished that game. Was just a finger pointing after the game. Like, why are you even bringing up Joel Embiid flopping? Like, everybody knows it. Joel Embiid admitted it. They said he's like, Jaylen Brown said you were. He asked about the injury. He's like, no, I was faking it. Like, I think he literally said, yeah, no, that was a fake injury. Like, I almost respect Embiid more for just admitting that.
And it's true because if you watch it from a basketball purist standpoint, he was flopping all over the place all series, whatever. But at the same time, he underwent surgery 4 weeks ago, and he's willing to just throw his giant body all over the place. That's how much it meant to him. And I didn't see that outside of the bench guys. Outside of the bench guys in the Celtics, I didn't see anyone. And as much as I'm going to get on Mazzulla for the starting lineup, like there was a moment in the opening minutes where Ron Harper Jr. had that. He picked that pass off. There's bodies flying. Shireman's on the floor. Everyone's died. You're like, all right, there's some spunk, and you would think that would inject some life into your regular starters. It just wasn't there all series.
Was not here all series. 617-779-0985. I see you still on the air. We're going to get back to your calls, but first, Hurley's going to give you a quick look at the headlines, and then we're going to come right back and continue the conversation. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
From the Delaware Tiger Studios, this is Boston's home for sports. Touchdown! The flagship station of the Patriots, Bruins, the Celtics, WBCFM and HD Boston 98.5 The Sports Hub. Leslie Media Group station celebrating 65 years of broadcasting. Sports Hub headlines.
All right, well, the Bruins season's over. The Celtics season is over. The Red Sox, though, they're still going. They're currently scoreless in the fifth inning over at Fenway Park against the Astros. Celtics losing last night in Game 7 at home against the Sixers. The first time in franchise history that the Celtics have blown a 3-1 series lead. Jason Tatum did not play in that game. He spoke to the media today and discussed the knee tightness that kept him out, saying it was a day-to-day thing, adding, quote, I know for a fact I would have been able to play if we had made it to the second round. All right, some news out of TD Garden in the injury front on Bruins breakup day. Charlie McAvoy told reporters he broke his hand in Game 2. He also opted not to comment on his impending hearing with the Department of Player Safety. And fellow D-man Hampus Lindholm said he's been dealing with a small fracture in his foot for the past 4 months. These guys are tough. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by DN Van Lines. Take the chance out of your move and make the sure bet with DN Van Lines, an approved mover of the Department of Defense. Visit dnvanlines.com. I'm Michael Hurley. Next update in 1 hour.
This is what happens when analysts take over the game, take over the sport.
This is where you talk sports.
It happens all the time.
The Sports Hub. The Bruins, the Celtics, the Patriots, the Sox, the Revs, and you. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley. We got you for the next 2 hours. We're still reacting to that Celtics loss last night. Still got plenty to get to. We went over a lot from the game. Went over a little bit of big picture stuff. Still some other big picture stuff to get to. Still haven't gotten to the Tatum stuff. So we're going to keep that going. And as I promised, we're going to go right back to the calls here. Jack in the car on the Celtics. Go ahead, Jack.
Hey guys. Yes, so I don't know if it was a big picture, but truthfully, I did not expect the Celtics to win last night for no other reason other than the fact that Joe Mazzulla is not going to change what his coaching style is, which is basically let these guys just shoot at abandon. What was most distressing was his comments afterwards where he said, I liked our looks, I liked our process, I just didn't like the results. And I actually put the blame on Brad Stevens, and I'll tell you why. If you remember correctly, when Brad was coaching, the players tuned him out. He had to go. And the Celtics ownership at the time did not want to pay him and also pay a new GM. So he was promoted to president of GM. He's made a lot of good moves. But I also tell you, too, I thought, what was the benefit of getting Vucevic? Vucevic, his best years were 3 years ago. He's a shell of himself. He contributed absolutely nothing to their season. And what did they give up? Anthony Simons. And what is Anthony Simons? He's a scorer. And Joe Mazzulla had a problem with Anthony Simons because he said he doesn't play defense. Well, guess what? Nobody plays defense in the NBA. But you do like a guy that can come off the bench, can put up some numbers really well. So I think if I'm the new owner, I would be looking to replace both Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys.
I want to where we're going to get Simon's offense when Tatum came back. That's why they traded him, because Tatum was coming. If Tatum wasn't coming back, I'm sure Simons would have stayed on the team.
No, if anything, the issue was that he didn't address that position in the offseason. And I know that they're kind of hamstrung. This is kind of a reset year financially. He touched on the Bill Chisholm should get rid of Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla. I think Bill Chisholm is quite happy with both of them. I think Brad Stevens did exactly what Bill Chisholm wanted, was to get under the luxury tax. They are under the luxury tax. And bad news, folks, they're probably going to stay under the tax for another season because they need to be under the tax for one more year to reset all their repeater penalties, as far as I know, based on my cursory research of the thing. I'm not an expert on all the machinations, but I believe they need to stay under the luxury tax for another year to reset those penalties. So that's what I expect them to do. So I don't expect them to, even if Chisholm wanted to spend eventually, it's not going to be this coming summer. I think Spot Track said they're at $13 million under the luxury tax, so they got about $13 million to work with. That's not too much money if you want to really improve your roster. I think Brad Stevens is going to have to get creative. I think he's going to have to make trades. He's probably going to have to make a big trade. I don't know if it's trading Jaylen Brown necessarily, but I think maybe a Derek White trade should be on the table. Maybe you trade him for front court help. I feel like someone that could fit or complement Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown more. I've seen people say like they need to get a true point guard, a true facilitator. That's like almost extinct. I'm not sure how many of those guys. I feel like every point guard just shoots and scores now, and every team just has their best player bring the ball up. Like, don't the Nuggets have? Doesn't Nikola Jokic bring the ball up?
Yeah,
he's basically their point guard. Luka Doncic is basically a point guard, even though he's like 6'7".
Yeah, there's no more pass first point guards.
Yeah, like Mike Conley is the only one left. He's like 90.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the other part of that call, and we're going to get a lot of calls, and I'm not saying I disagree that they need a new coach. It's just such an interesting spot to be in because he's probably going to win Coach of the Year because of his work from games 1 through 82. But he probably, based on the 3 playoff series losses to end 3 of the last 4 years, that in the NBA is a reason to get a new coach. Like, you can get into the philosophy and everything like that. It's just flat out results. I liked our process. I liked it. What were the results? The results are what matters in professional sports. And if you're losing series, if it happens once, all right, stuff happens. I don't know if last year people said because Tatum got hurt that's why the series was lost at that point. They were going to be down 3-1 when Tatum went down. 3 times you're heavy favorites, heavy favorites. This time you're the 2 seed. We took a call the other day. Someone was like, you know what? I think the Sixers are better. And it's like, this is a 2-7 matchup.
Yeah.
Stop it. That was a play-in team.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying is that once it got to that game 7 and then all of a sudden the Sixers have all their best players healthy and the Celtics don't have Jason Tatum, wasn't really a true 2 versus 7 matchup at that point, but shouldn't have even gotten to that point in the first place.
And I think Tatum should have played.
I think Tatum should have played. I've been teasing the Tatum talk for over an hour now. We're going to get to it, I promise. So yeah, Joe Mazzulla, last I checked, I'm checking the most recent, I think, Coach of the Year odds. He is the favorite, minus 150. So I don't see him. I don't think he's going to get fired. But I think he should have at the very least, the seat should be hot. And if he thinks he can go out in the post game and say the results don't really matter so much as the process, the journey there, he's probably a little too comfortable in the job.
A key thing too, I'm trying to find my exact note. There's been 14 teams that have blown a 3-1 series lead out of 302 instances. This is the first time it's happened outside of the bubble since the Warriors blew it to the Cavs in the finals 10 years ago. And I had the exact teams. I believe they're the fourth team to do it with home court advantage. So you have home court and the 3-1. It's not like you're the underdog who snuck up on them with a couple of punches to the jaw, and now all of a sudden you're up 3-1 and they end up losing. Golden State, Cleveland was one. Phoenix lost a series in the 90s, and Philly lost a series in 1968 or 69. Those are the 4 times. And now the Boston Celtics, where you're up 3-1, you're the favorite, you're at home, and you lose. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and be like, get rid of whoever, but that's what gets you fired in professional sports. That's just a reality.
It is. They're not living in reality if they think Joe Mazzulla hasn't done anything to at least be in trouble or be on notice or have a hot seat. And I think the seat should at least be hot.
And guys win championships and get fired. Like Nick Nurse is not in Toronto. Michael Malone's not in Denver. Guys win championships. Who won in Minnesota? Budenholzer. Guys win champion. It doesn't give you much job security in the NBA. It gets you maybe a couple years.
Yeah, I don't even know who the Oklahoma City Thunder coach is next year.
I mean, he's been there. He's maybe the exception. He's probably going to be like, I feel like he's going to be a Popovich down there. But maybe not. If they suck next year, maybe not.
And Steve Kerr is like one of the exceptions. But when you actually have a dynasty, you kind of get some latitude there. But yeah, Joe Mazzulla should not be afforded that latitude. I don't know exactly. I thought he had a good regular season this year, but I just don't know what he's done to earn a job for life status.
And if you don't mind me saying, who cares? Of all the regular seasons in all the sports.
Oh, the NBA, yeah.
I know home court matters, and this was an incredible regular season. Like, it really was. The way that he would manipulate it, like Jordan Walsh would have a 3-week run where he was a key rotational player. Then it was Gonzalez. Then it was Shireman. Like, all these guys, and the way that he had the right finger on the button to get through that regular season was very impressive. But who cares? Who actually cares?
He does. I mean, he doesn't even care. He's like I don't even think Coach of the Year should be an award. I think it's a stupid idea, and they might give it to him anyway. Which that just makes it that much more disappointing. That it felt like in the regular season, maybe he did learn from last year. Maybe he did learn I need to adjust things a little more in the game and play different lineups and try different things and. They just reverted to the same bad habits, and that was very frustrating to watch. Bill in Wilmington on the Celtics coaching. What's up, Bill?
Yeah, hello. Hey, Joe Mazzulla, first coach in NBA history to lose 3 series with a 90% win probability. Something's clearly not right with this team. With him, they're not taking him whatever he's saying. He makes 0 adjustments. The pick and roll defense is pathetic. The off-ball defense is terrible. Jaylen Brown still can't dribble. He can't make free throws. They got to do something.
Thanks, Bill. And yeah, I'm glad he mentioned the free throws because that game 6, I feel like that's not going to get as much discussion as it should because the way they came out in that, they looked like chickens with their heads cut off. They looked like they had no plan coming out in that game offensively, and then short-arming all the free throws. I was sitting at home, speculating, allegedly, we're are they what's going on here? Are they following some kind of order off the court? Why are they missing these free throws? This is weird.
I would go back to game 5 when you have the series sewn up. You're on home court, and they lollygagged through that game. There were rebounds. I remember Cato went up, kind of went, then he just kind of poops it through his leg, and he's like, oh, there it goes. Hauser had one where they just fumble the ball away. They just weren't. Their effort level was notice. It looked like they were at practice in, I don't know, July. It looked like they were just holding basketballs for the first time in the month. And that's where you're sort of saying you have this sort of hard-ass coach who can be, jiu-jitsu and everything like that. You got to lay into them at that point. You got to wake them up because if you treat game 5 like you're just going to win anyway, it doesn't really matter, and then you lose game 5, you see what can happen, and they should know that. They should be well aware of that, but it seems as though that's not the voice that they're getting. And let me ask you this, just what we know about Joe Mazzulla. I don't put this out of the realm of possibility. It's ridiculous, so bear with me. I don't put it out of the realm of possibility that he resigns. Just like I have failed. This was what it was.
He just goes up and commits seppuku on the podium.
He's just a strange guy, so I don't rule that one out.
Yeah, like he's I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns and then just goes like lives in Tibet for 7 years and we don't hear from him. Like he just seems like that kind of guy, which is, look, you could be whatever kind of person you want if you win basketball games, but feels more like he's getting in the way. And like multiple things can be true. The players can choke, the roster cannot be good enough, and the coach is sort of adding to the problem with, weird starting lineups, not ready to go, no strategy, not nearly enough in-game adjustments. He doesn't call timeouts at the right time still. Like that was a bigger issue a couple years ago, but it just feels like he hasn't learned enough. He hasn't developed enough. And look, maybe he's the next Eric Spoelstra, where if you remember, like Eric Spoelstra, when he started with the Heat, young head coach, I thought he was a clown.
We all clowned him. We're like, wow, you won with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. That's hard to do.
They stuck with him, and he's turned into like one of the best, tactician head coaches. Maybe Mazzulla's on that trajectory, but if they're going to stick with him, then they need to make changes on the roster because it's obvious something is amiss here with the team. All right, who's been on hold the longest here? Oh, okay, yeah, we got JP in the car says Celtics fans need to calm down. I'm interested to see where this one's going. What's up, JP?
Hey, guys, how are you? Disappointing, last 4 minutes with the shot selection. Mazzulla probably shouldn't have challenged that call. That being said, I'm hearing people say Brad Stevens has got to go or isn't legit. You got to be kidding me. Every team would probably die to have Brad Stevens as their executive. He's making awesome long-term decisions. This team 12 months ago, we were talking about potentially going for A.J. Dibanza in draft pick lottery. The season was what it was, above expectations given the card we were dealt. And again, Brad Stevens is the man.
Thanks, JP. No, I'm with you on that one. I think Brad Stevens is the least of their concerns right now. I think he's the best GM in town right now. I think he's shown a willingness to make tough decisions, however you want to describe it, make aggressive moves, aggressive changes. And I think it's become a little bit tougher for him because now he has to stay under the luxury tax. I think in 2023, 2024, in the last couple of years of Wick Grousbeck owning the team and directing him with the money and the spending and basically having like an unlimited wallet, it felt like he had a little more freedom and he could just bring in guys that were, making as much money as they were, like guys with Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Needs to be a little more creative now and get value out of guys that are making a lot less money. But I am confident that Brad Stevens is going to make the necessary changes to improve the team. What do you think?
We didn't really even address the call earlier saying Stevens was at fault. Or if we did, we vehemently disagreed. I think Stevens is doing a great job there. I want to see what he does with the coach. This is a gut check time for him because, like you said, I guess like I said, so I'm quoting myself now, which is dirty pool.
Putting words in my mouth, literally.
It's complicated that one of the 4 years ends with a trophy and a parade. But 3 of the last 4 years, you've lost series where you were far and away the better team. Far and away the better team. And if, like I said, it can be excused once or twice. 3 out of 4 years. This is now your DNA. This is you. And until you change something about it, and are you going to get rid of your stars? I doubt it. Who can you get changed? Who can you swap out? A new voice. And there's going to be a lot of calls for it too, I think, should this come. Like Sam Cassell is right there. He is a guy who's been there, done that, has the pedigree as a player, has the respect of the players. Can he coach an NBA team to a championship? I don't know. But he's going to get a lot of support, I think, if that's the way the Celtics go.
Yeah, I agree that like this next press conference that Stevens does, whenever that is, like I'm very interested to see how he reacts, what he says, how he reacts to how he talks about Joe Mazzulla. If he comes out and says, "No, Joe Mazzulla's doing a great job. We have full confidence in him. We believe in him and all that."
No, I got to cut you off because there was 3-4 years ago Stevens did the end of season post, whatever you call it, post-mortem. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous press conference ever. He basically was like, yeah, we missed some shots. It's no big deal. And what happened that offseason was wholesale changes. So whatever he says at the podium, I will disregard because he has a great poker face.
Actions speak louder than words. 617-779-0985. I see you all on the line there. Tim, Dan, Josh, we're going to get back to you. We're going to continue the conversation here. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Does your home need a new roof?
There's plenty to chew on and across the city. The theme of today is the city of Boston has ruined our summer, to go back to a classic refrain from our competitors across the street, Hurley. But We are still going on the Celtics because it feels like a lot of people have been hopping in their cars, taking the cars out for a spin. We've had a lot of car calls, and we got a couple more on the line here. What do you say we get back to these calls here?
It's Sunday. People got places to do, people to see, and they're mad.
Yeah, exactly. It was better than last week. Masters Sunday. We were practically begging for calls, but I think everyone was a little busy that day.
Everyone hearing us say that we were on the air Masters Sunday is just now learning for the first time that there was live radio.
Believe it or not, there was a live radio program going on at that time.
We should be leading into Bruins Game 7 tonight. That's all I wanted.
Right. Yeah, you have the Bruins to thank for having to listen to us yammer on for an extra hour.
Even if they lost Game 7, I at least wanted Game 7 in Buffalo. Imagine the tension there. That would have been something. So that was what I was holding out for this weekend. I mean, I assumed the Celtics were going to beat the Sixers. But in terms of things as a reach, I was like, just get to Game 7. That'd be cool.
Right. No, like I still have Bruins stuff I probably want to get off my chest if we have time at the later show. But yeah, the fact that we don't even have a Celtics playoff run to talk about this month, like I do not envy our colleagues that have full-time on-air gigs. They have to fill 20 hours of radio now, 5 days a week for the next month.
Well, think about
I do not envy them.
This is a little self-promotion. The other day I was saying what was exposed in the Games 5 and 6 losses for the Celtics made me feel like even if you get through this, like you're not going to beat the Knicks. That's where you were at, and that's where I guess you save yourself that agony of the next 2 weeks, but at what cost?
Right. The Knicks were on a crazy roll. So like even if the Celtics won, I think you're right. Even if the Celtics won last night, we might be saying like they're probably going to get steamrolled by the Knicks the way the Knicks are playing. They look like they've come together here.
Knicks in 5, I would have gone.
617-779-0985. We're going to get back to the calls. First order wait here. We got Foss in Lowell on the Celtics. Go ahead, Foss.
Hey, guys. I just want to say congratulations to the Celtics. You guys had an amazing year. Last year when Jason Tatum went out with that Achilles, everyone in the league, I'm a Lakers guy, so everyone in the league didn't even think the Celtics would even reach the playoffs, to say the least. And I want to say Joe Mazzulla, any team in the league right now would love to have Joe Mazzulla. He never changed his demeanor, how he looked at the team. And I just want to say one extra thing. With the roster that you guys had this year and the way that you guys reached, the point that you guys are at now is a testament to what Joe Mazzulla has been doing. No one expected you guys to ever make it to the playoffs. So I just want to say, and the fact that you guys got to the playoffs with a year that Jason Tatum went out should be recognized throughout the league at how dangerous your roster could be, and how maybe one or two more pieces will bring you guys back to that established name again. So I just want to say you guys are not far out from a championship run again. It could be next year, as far as we know it. So shout out to to Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics for doing what they did with what they had this year.
All right, thanks, Foss. I just don't agree on the playoff part of it. Like, no, I thought they were a playoff team. Like,
everyone.
I didn't think they were going to win 56 and be the 2 seed. I think if I don't know if I went on record, but if you were to ask me my prediction going into this, I would have said they're 4 seed.
I had them
top half of the conference.
I had them at 44 wins.
Yeah.
I looked at last year. Remember they played the Magic in the first round. That was maybe a 42-40 team. And I'm like, you can be the Magic. You still have Jaylen Brown. You still have a good infrastructure. So
they weren't going to be under 500 with Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard.
I'm sure there were people, and some people were like tank, and I know they lost the first 3 games of the year, and people probably like start tanking. That was, the extremes. There's always the extremes. I think generally most people thought this was a playoff team. They outperformed that. They were probably 10, 12 wins better than anyone expected them to be, which was great. But again, who cares?
All due respect to Foss, too, like I'm kind of glad he's not running the team because it sounds like he wouldn't make any changes. He would just run it back.
And saying like you could be a contender next year. They should have been a contender this year. You did have Jason Tatum, sort of, and Jaylen Brown.
This is sort of the thing that I've learned over, with the Patriots this past year, and now the Celtics, and even the Bruins, how expectations change over the course of the year. And so anyone coming out of this loss last night saying, well, it was a gap year, what do you want? They didn't have Tatum, what do you want? You're just coping. That's not the expectation once you're the 2 seed. You got Tatum back, They played at a very, very high level with both Tatum and Brown in the lineup. It looked like everything was coming together. Felt like they were, the path was right there for them to get to the finals. At least get to the conference finals, be competitive in that series, regardless of who you're playing. The path was there to get at least to the conference finals.
The red carpet was being laid out for you once again. Like, Detroit might not make it out of the first round. We'll find out later. And, what was their record with Tatum in the lineup? 13-3? 12-4? Like, they were as good as we expected them to be going into the playoffs. It would have helped if he played last night.
Dan in the car. Go ahead, Dan.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
Good,
listen,
thanks.
I don't think that the finger shouldn't be pointed at Mazzulla, but, let's face it here. The NBA is the most egotistical sport when it comes to these athletes. And the philosophy is once something goes south, it's always on the coach. All the fingers need to be pointed at these players. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and Brown. These guys have been here before. Where's the drive? You're up 3-1. Put your foot on their necks, right? I don't know. Listen, I know Mazzulla's probably going to get canned, and rightfully so, I guess. But, the root of the problem is the locker room. The switches need to be made from the roster down. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks, Dan. I don't disagree on, the locker room, the chemistry, all that. I'm just not sure that they lacked drive last night. I feel like that was there. They just, there was a lack of preparedness, I thought. They weren't ready for the moment. Maybe that does go back to, a mental thing. I don't know if I'm doing semantics now, some kind of mental block, some kind of thing going on upstairs. I'm not sure it was a lack of drive. I think they wanted to step on their throats. It's just the way they're going about doing it was terrible, the way they went about it in the closing minutes there. And I think that does go back to Joe Mazzulla and the lack of situational preparedness, the lack of planning. I think you need to coach these guys up at some point. But to his point though, that was a golden opportunity for Jaylen Brown to take over that game. Felt like he was doing it for a moment when he blocked that Paul George shot, and then it just went completely in the opposite direction, and he completely came up short in his best opportunity yet to prove that he was who he says he is.
I was a little disappointed you let him go because I was going to ask Dan a question, and I was just going to say, could you explain to me what type of game Ron Harper Jr. has? Because I think that's the thing. And again, I collected all these tweets tonight. This one's from Dick Leip, the statistician that provides all the crazy information. The starting lineup last night: Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Luka Garza, Baylor Shireman, Ron Harper Jr. Over the course of 88 games, that combination of 5 players, 0 minutes on the floor together. And that's what you go out in Game 7 and roll with. In a must-win Game 7, and you're the head coach, and you're like, this is my idea. And it blows up, and you're down 11 early, and you're working from behind until they didn't take a lead forever. When was their first lead? In the fourth?
I think they took a lead before that.
It took a very long time because your coach decided to screw around and start 3 bench guys. Because why? Because the bench gave you a spark at the end of Game 6 when your stars were lifeless. So, yeah, obviously the players at the end, that's the bigger thing. Jaylen Brown missing those shots, missing Cato wide open, Pritchard missing an open shot, Hauser kind of panicking. All those things are probably bigger factors.
They're not putting him in position to succeed.
Exactly. That's what all you can do as a coach. Bill Belichick said it every time. A coach can lose a game 5,000 different ways. All you want to do is not lose the game for the players. And when you put guys in positions that they are not best suited to succeed, you are hurting the team actively.
Yeah, and I think Tatum is probably the only guy on the roster where you don't have to necessarily coach him up or put him in position to succeed. He's the one guy on the team. No, I don't even put Jaylen Brown in that category where just put the ball in his hands and he'll figure it out. That's the only guy I'm willing to give that sort of credence to is Tatum. I think that what they had last night, there had to be some kind of plan in it. I think it's clear that Mazzulla didn't have one at all or he didn't have nearly enough of it. 617-779-0985. We're loaded up here. Still plenty of people wanting to talk Celtics. We're going to keep on it, but we're going to take a quick break here. Hang in there. We're going to come back and continue the conversation. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
98.5 The Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley got you until 5 o'clock. Phone lines are loaded up, Hurley. The people are pissed.
People are mad.
Okay, so I got to figure out the order of weight here. All right, I know some of you have been waiting for a while. All right, we're going to go to Josh in the car. He's got issues with the coaching. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Great show. So, yeah, I'm steamed from last night. That was just horrendous. I got a couple things to unpack here. So, first of all, while I do agree they need a coaching change from an organizational standpoint, this is Brad Stevens' guy, right? And while, again, look over the last couple of years, this guy is not good at in-game adjustments, but I'll tell you who was never good at in-game adjustments either, Brad Stevens. In fact, he used to be great after the timeout drawing up plays, but he had the same problem, ebbs and flows with substitution patterns. He almost seemed like he would not want to substitute certain guys in for whatever reason. Last night was a classic example. Hugo was a plus 14 when he was on the floor in the first half. What happens in the second half? He doesn't play a lot, and that changed everything for them defensively. Second point is, I think that from an organizational standpoint, in terms of the talent on the team, they have the talent to get to win a championship. I just think that their lack of really wanting to spend money, okay, getting under the apron, I understand that was what this year was about. But the only thing that Brad Stevens has done that was bad, he's made some amazing moves since he's been the GM, was the Anthony Simons move. Because look what they needed. What did they need last night? They needed somebody off the bench to provide shooting and scoring. And Simons is a microwave guy. He can get 30 or 40 on any night, no sweat. That's what they missed last night. That was like the missing link. That would have taken pressure off of Brown. That would have taken pressure off of White. You know, you can't ask Peyton Pritchard. He was almost in a situation last night where he had to be a distributor, but he also had to score. That's not a championship formula. I think that's the one mistake that Brad made was, and I understand why, because of salary cap issues. And I get it. I know it came from up top. They said, you got to move this contract. But in a game 7 where they lost, really, like it came down to that one possession, they would have not been in that spot if they had Simons. That, I think, was just a bad trade. So I'm steamed, man. We should have never gotten to a game 7. Tatum would have never gotten hurt. It's just bringing up, bad stuff. But you guys are doing a great job, and we'll look to next year and see what happens.
All right, thanks, Josh. I appreciate the kind words there. Yeah, honestly, I think what he says about what they missed last night, I think it all goes back to Tatum, honestly. They missed Tatum's rebounding. They missed his passing for sure. You need Brown and Pritchard to be your top facilitators instead of Tatum. Like, I think that was a bad deal for them. And yeah, like, I think Stevens, like, I think he was sort of hamstrung with that Simons. I don't think they ever intended to even have Simons on the roster. I think that was just a chess piece. I think they wanted to trade him. They wanted to spin him off in another trade as soon as they got him. I don't think they ever even intended him to play that much. But they did lose that element. Like, regardless of the contract, they missed that sort of element that Simons brings.
It worked out because there was talk he wouldn't make it to the season. He'd be traded away. And then he ended up playing pretty well. And then you did get, like, say what you will about Vucevic. I think he fit in better before the injury. He just never really reintegrated into the lineup after that with Tatum in there because they played together for 6 minutes, I think, before Vucevic had the injury.
Yeah.
So that never quite worked, but you at least got a usable piece for him. And then head coach Joe Mazzulla didn't play him 1 minute in Game 7 because he wanted to start Ron Harper Jr.
Yeah. So I think my thing with Stevens, though, is it's not that every move has been perfect. I don't expect any GM to be perfect with his moves. It's the willingness to make the changes, and maybe it'll get to a point where he makes changes for the sake of it. He does something that's unnecessary. Like, I think Ainge sort of fell into trouble with that at some points. Was it when he traded Kendrick Perkins? That's kind of an infamous one back in the day. And so maybe that was the moment where he thought, I don't need to be so aggressive, and then he went in the other direction. He didn't make any deadline deals for 8 years in a row. But I'd like that Stevens is willing to make bold moves and make aggressive moves and get creative with it. And so I expect more of the same this offseason. It's no guarantee that it's going to work out, but I think he's at least going to put in the effort to, fix the roster the way it is. All right, we got to go to the next call here. I was a little concerned, not concerned, I was a little confused earlier, Hurley. I was like, is this the guy that just called in? But no, apparently it is a longtime sports caller, JP in North Providence, called in and says, I want to clear my name. He was not happy, apparently, with that last JP that called in. JP in North Providence. Go ahead, JP.
Matt D and Hurley. Speaking of Hurley, I would have rather have had Dan Hurley out there coaching last night. Get the dump button ready, and I called Joe already this morning, still fired up. Like Ohio State, this is the JP. The others are pretenders. This is the one. So listen, who would you rather have had last night, the last 5 minutes of that game? Brad Stevens on the floor or Mazzulla? And we know the answer. Mazzulla has to go. No tactician. You need 1 point. You're trying for 3. Go to the rack. Why Big V was not out there, I don't care if he could play. It's size. It could slow the game down. It could cover some of the floor. That lineup should have had if that was Jerry Jones, he'd have been calling down to the field as soon as he saw that lineup coming out. And to not know 20 minutes before, that's a gambling thing, which is a whole Joe thing. Because not telling people that Tatum's going to play ahead of time and waiting that long, how bad was he? You couldn't give me 2 minutes to fire up the crowd, put him at the end of the bench? Don't like the lineup. Don't like where they're going. Definitely move the coach, and will you draft a big man? I want a big man that's angry. I don't care if he can score. Put somebody out there that fills space, because they're not filling space on that floor. Chucking up threes with no rebounding, not going to work.
I got bad news.
Thanks, JP.
You know what you're going to get instead? Kata spending all summer learning how to shoot a 3.
Best I can do is Kata playing offense.
Best I can do is a perimeter big man.
Yeah, look, I liked Kata last night. He came in and immediately, made a difference compared to that starting lineup anyway. But he's a backup center. He's not truly a starting. I give him credit for how he played this year, but starting center on a championship team, not quite what you're looking for. I don't think. Well, you don't think he. You think he's worse than that?
I think he could have been. I mean, if Jaylen Brown plays like Jaylen Brown and Derek White plays like Derek White, I think he can be your fifth best player in your starting lineup.
Yeah, I could. I mean, it got to a point. It might have been. No, it wasn't in the playoffs because they only made one round. There was a game late in the season where I think they had Brown, Tatum, Pritchard, White, Kata on the floor. I was like, that's their best 5. Now, that's a small lineup, but that was their best 5. And so I just feel like that was sort of by default that Kata was their best player.
So is your contention, Matt, that their best 5 did not involve Baylor Shireman, Ron Harper Jr., and
Luka Garza.
Sorry.
I thought you were. Yeah, I didn't know where you're going with that. No, Luka Garza. If the idea there was to play with intensity, play with physicality, play defense, make it hard on a guy like Joel Embiid, didn't exactly work out the way they wanted. 2 minutes in,
you one bench guy in your starting, like maybe throw Ugo in there to just play like his hair's on fire for 4 minutes and then take him out.
Another guy that I thought made a difference when he came in, Gonzalez. I liked him a lot last night. So I feel like in the offseason a Derek White trade should definitely be on the table. If you can trade him for front court help, and then you just increase the role of Gonzalez in the backcourt. And Shireman, I thought showed you a little something down the stretch of the regular season. I'd be okay with him sort of taking over the Sam Hauser spot in the roster if you could find a taker for Sam Hauser, get rid of that contract. So I'd be looking into changes like that. I know, Brad Stevens is probably listening right now and taking notes on my advice for him on the roster. But yeah, I think it's obvious what they need to improve on the roster and where they can get better. Yeah, Luka Garza though, I just had to touch on it. 2 minutes in, he's committing a move foul because he's too slow to keep up with Joel Embiid,
who's 4 weeks removed from an appendectomy.
Tough look. That was a tough look.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not his fault. It's Mazzulla's fault for putting him out there in the starting lineup in Game 7 in the first place.
But even to your point, you're not the only one who watched Ugo in that first half and be like, yeah, you're getting a pop there. Didn't score a point because he's not good enough in these moments. And it's like you start 3 of those guys. Insane.
Tom in Marshfield on Jason Tatum. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm old enough to be around for the Red Auerbach era when he was president GM. I remember always hearing about mental toughness, physical toughness, You go through the years of Havlicek, you get to the Bird era, Paul Pierce era. You used to see players that were getting massaged on the sidelines. They're trying to work the hamstring. They're doing all of these different things. I think back, like if Larry Bird was in a situation with his bad back, would he give it a go? Like, I just don't understand that. The word we get is that Tatum had some stiffness. What is that? Like, what does that mean? There's no possibility he could have given it a go? We talk about his contract, $300 million. The fans are paying that money. They're paying that salary. I just don't understand how he couldn't have been on the court and at least gave it a go, just as a presence, just to go out there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just be out there, and maybe you'll get double teamed. Just keep dishing the ball off. Like, what does that mean in the world of basketball today? He had some stiffness. I just think, and I don't want to compare people, but I thought that Larry Bird couldn't play a night because he had some stiffness in his leg. I'd be like, something. I think Bird would have tried to play through that.
Thanks, Tom. And I guess I'll just touch on it now, Hurley. I've been trying to get into the Tatum part of the...
Maybe this can set us up for our...
I think he's set us up pretty nicely to just get into it now. This is so confusing, and I don't even blame the reporters for not asking the right questions or anything like that, because they asked Mazzulla about it before the game, and like what is he going to say after the game that's any different. But Jason Tatum, the day before the game, 24 hours before Game 7, no injuries to report.
No injuries to report.
Then
after
you get
Thursday, even after Game 6, they were like, he's fine.
He's fine.
He didn't play the whole fourth quarter.
Because there were concerns. He was icing up or whatever he was doing during Game 6. There were concerns right there. Like, okay, but then they said he's fine. And I felt even at that time that, like, this is classic Celtics blowing smoke about an injury. Like, they tend to downplay injuries to the nth degree. But then you get to yesterday afternoon, and then all of a sudden Jason Tatum is questionable. And then you get to even closer to the game, and all of a sudden Jason Tatum's out, and they call it stiffness in his knee. And then that's what Mazzulla came out and said, that he has a little stiffness, so we decide he can't go. And someone asked him who has the final say. He said, me and the medical staff, Mazzulla said. So I'm very confused by the whole situation and the messaging and all that, because if they wanted to run cover for Jason Tatum, then I don't know why they're saying he has knee stiffness. Like, I feel like saying that he's sitting out with knee stiffness kind of makes it look worse for Tatum.
Yeah.
And then I look at Tatum himself and it says, look, if he really wanted to play, couldn't he just overrule everything?
He could have played.
And Tatum says today, I'm pulling up the tweet from Jay King. Jason Tatum said he was still technically in, quote, return to play protocol. He and his medical team had a plan, and he said they needed to stick with it as much as it hurt him to miss Game 7. So this was the plan all along? That's what it makes it sound like. This is the plan all along. We get to a Game 7, he can't play. Or
no.
If something comes up, you feel a little stiff, we're going to sit you.
Yes, I think it's the latter. There was no you're out Game 7. But he also said he's confident fully that had they made it past the Sixers, he'd be playing against the Knicks, with Game 1 being tomorrow. So to me, the caller said it, you've got to suit up and try to play. You really do. I mean, and you're sympathetic to a point of the psychological hindrance that there is to playing when you had your whole career flash in front of your eyes. He did a whole freaking documentary about getting back on and all his fears and concerns and everything. I get it. I understand. But this you played 26 games. You've been back. Telling people today that your calf is smaller than your leg. This is part of being a professional athlete, is playing through psychological hurdles. And this one is in front of you, and you bow down to it. Like, this is Game 7. It's Game 7. I said to you when I got in the building today, Tuukka Rask missed Game 82 of the regular season for a team on the bubble of the playoffs and was literally, pardon the graphic description, was literally vomiting and diarrheaing at the same time. Very hard to stop pucks from the greatest hockey players in the world.
They had to plug every orifice.
Everything was coming out of his ears. And he didn't play that game, and for a decade that has hung over him, and people said he's afraid of the moment or whatever. That was wrong. He was wrongly misaligned, but that's how much people care about sports here. I hope there's at least the openness to people having the same thoughts about your star player saying, you know what? The knee's a little tight. I'm going to let the fellas win Game 7 for me. Oh, we lost. I'm just going to chuckle with Joel Embiid here after we lost Game 7 of a series that we were minus 900 favorites to win.
Either way, it's a terrible look. No matter whose decision it was, it was a terrible look. If Jason Tatum pulled himself out of the game, which feels likely. Like, I feel like if he wanted to play, he could have played. He could have overruled everything. Could have overruled whatever the fake return to the play protocol. Like, I shudder to think they had to stick to that.
There's also,
if he wanted to play, he could have played. So if he bagged out of Game 7 because he's feeling a little stiffness, terrible look for him. That's the worst case scenario. The other possible scenario is that they actually did make this as like an organizational decision, because for Tatum, he's never been a guy that doesn't want to play. Like, he plays, and I think you made this point off the air. That was pre-injury, so maybe post-injury, he's thinking a little differently. But even if it's an organizational decision, that's terrible too. You want to protect an asset like Bill Chisholm and Brad Stevens look at Jason Tatum as an asset. We got to protect our asset for the long term. We don't want him blowing out his other Achilles or whatever they were worried about.
Matt, he didn't come back last week. He's been back for 2 months.
Yeah, he's been back. You've been playing. A little bit of stiffness. That's why, like, I feel like they're sort of hanging him out to dry. That's why it does tell me that Jason Tatum pulled himself out of the game.
Well,
they're not that the Celtics are known to do this. They tend to, pump up their own players and be misleading or downplaying injuries. For them to come out and say that he just has a little stiffness, so he's going to sit in Game 7 to protect our team from blowing a 3-1 lead, like it's just a weird situation. And if they thought, if they thought they could just sit Tatum for this game and they would win anyway, they could just cruise to victory. We don't need Tatum to win this game. That's just arrogance. That's institutional arrogance, especially with a head coach who doesn't have a plan. And he puts Luka Garza in the starting lineup. Unbelievable.
Believable. No, and you're right to say that they kind of hung him out to dry, because go back to Game 6. He leaves the game in the third quarter. You see him earlier in the game testing it out, running sprints in the timeout, trying to see if he still has the jump and the lift. The game ends. He leaves in the late third quarter, doesn't come back for the rest of the game. They lose. They say after the game, he's fine. And as the caller pointed out, that injury report Friday saying no injuries to report, and then a day later being like, psych, our best player's hurt. I don't think something popped up. And that's kind of a big deal. I mean, who cares about the gambling, if you're gambling your money and whatever, but people do care. And to say that there's no injuries and then a day later, the number one player is out, I don't know. There's something odd going on. And I think from 1,000 feet away, it looks like mentally he was afraid he was going to re-injure himself.
Yeah, bizarre situation either way, and concerning, especially if this is falling on Tatum and he was the one that pulled himself. 617-779-0985. We got to take a break here. We're up against it. We're going to come right back and continue the conversation. I see a bunch of you on the line. Hang in there. We're still talking Celtics. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Boston's home for sports. WBC-FM at HD Boston. 98.5 The Sports Hub. A Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
Hey, you want some more bad news, people? How about this one? Ranger Suarez left today's Red Sox game after 4 shutout innings, just 70 pitches. He left the game officially with hamstring tightness. The Red Sox, of course, already without Garrett Crochet and Sonny Gray in the starting rotation. We'll see what's to come post-game. That game, by the way, tied at 1 in the 7th inning thanks to a Jarren Duran solo homer in the 5th. Sticking with the injury theme, Jason Tatum spoke to the media today and said the knee tightness that kept him out of a must-win Game 7 last night was a day-to-day thing and that he would have played in the second round if the Celtics had won without him. And the annual tradition of Bruins sharing their injuries on breakup day came today. Charlie McAvoy said he suffered a broken hand in Game 2 against Buffalo. Hampus Lindholm played with a broken bone in his foot for the past 4 months. Elias Lindholm had a back injury he dealt with. Victor Arvidsson had a fractured rib and punctured lung that kept him out of the last 2 games. And David Pasternak said he tore his groin back in November. Sheesh. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Boston Prolotherapy. Don't let pain keep you off the course or trail. Eliminate that pain with Dr. Franke of Boston Prolotherapy. I'm Michael Hurley. Next update in 60 minutes.
Are you actually coaching the game, or it's just the
that is? I feel so strongly about that. I can't even tell you.
Boston talk sports here.
What do we got?
Sports. In this town, sports happens 24/7. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
.98.5 The Sports Hub. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley. We're with you. Only one more hour, Hurley. We're getting through it here.
Could have been 2.
I know.
Could have been 2.
Thanks to the Boston hockey Bruins. With I wanted to get into them today, but we still got Celtics calls to get to, and the people are fired up, and I want them to get it out. I think when a night like last night, a show like this can be therapeutic for the fans. I always say real fans get mad sometimes. If you're not mad about that, if you're a Celtics fan, you're not mad about that loss last night, blowing the series. You got to dig a little deeper there. I think you're making excuses and coping if you're okay with that.
Do you know what's a good indication of being mad? Waiting for a half hour to talk to us.
Right. Exactly.
So I think we got to hear it.
We've got a couple guys that have been on the line here waiting, so we're going to get to you. Jerry in North Carolina on Joe Mazzulla. Go ahead, Jerry.
Oh, my God. Where do you start? I mean, this guy has been a disaster since 3 years ago, when he came on board and created an environment that I think Brad Stevens certainly pushed, but ultimately Joe was the guy who was instrumental on the floor night in, night out, throwing up threes like no tomorrow. They didn't learn the last time that they got into the finals or close, and they threw up the 3-ball like no tomorrow and lost. The way this is constituted now, it's certainly the players, certainly the coach, but I would even go up to Brad, that the philosophy that they have used over the last couple of years has failed. They need to take a step back, realize that, and begin to reconstitute the little bit of the roster, but more importantly, the philosophy, how they get into a game and what they need to do to win it.
All right, thanks, Jerry. You touched on a couple things there. But first, I want to rewind, Hurley. I need to add a late-breaking member of the blame pie for last night.
Okay.
Right. Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
If he keeps it in his pants, he might still be the coach here, and they might have multiple championships. Who knows? Maybe he's getting more out of this roster than Joe Mazzulla did. It's his fault that they had to throw Joe Mazzulla in there before he was ready to be an NBA head coach. And so part of me wonders, again, we talked about Spoelstra a little bit earlier, like maybe Mazzulla just needs time to develop, and maybe he will turn into, the tactician and the head coach that we all want him to be. And I think even if they do get a new head coach, they got to make changes on the roster as well. So I think changes need to come, all over the team, roster, organization, whatever. But the fact that it feels like he hasn't learned anything after last year, that is concerning.
Yeah, and it spreads its way down. Like Sam Hauser going to the podium last night, like, we had some good looks. If they go down, it's different. It's like, it wasn't different. They didn't go down. But I do like, the meme where it's like, the guy eventually turns into like the galaxy brain.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, Jaylen Brown missed a lot of shots. Then it's like Joe Mazzulla has a bad philosophy. And then at the end, at the very top is like, Ime needed to keep it in his pants. That's the galaxy brain.
I appreciate that. You're calling me the galaxy brain. I appreciate that. Yeah, the philosophy thing is another one. This is my whole thing with analytics, Hurley, is that I have a bigger problem with analytics making the games less entertaining because of the approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I only have a problem with analytics being, part of a team and the way they run a team if it's like you're the only thing you depend on. If you think analytics is going to carry you to success. And we've seen a lot of it in baseball. We're kind of seeing it with the Red Sox. It seems like they think they can take this mid-market approach. They don't need to spend on elite talent. They can get to where they want to be just by going by the analytical approach. But I just don't think that wins. I think, not to cross sports real quick, but like the Dodgers, they have a pretty deep analytics department as far as I know. I think they're very analytically driven, but they spend on top talent, which they know at the end of the day, it's top talent you need. And you can take an analytical approach to improve on the margins and, look at game situations and play matchups and all that stuff. I get that, but it can't be your whole identity. You got to invest in talent, and you got to have a coach that knows what he's doing. Doesn't feel like Mazzulla knows what he's doing quite enough to get to where the Celtics need to be. All right, let's go to the next caller here. Been waiting half an hour. Connor in Maryland on Tatum. Go ahead, Connor.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to maybe bring up the point of maybe it's Tatum giving the fans a little middle finger that doubted him. Like the ones that were saying, hey, we got here. We won, how many games? 52 with Jalen. Like, we can do it without Tatum. And maybe he was like, all right, let me take a step back. And look how that worked out for you.
Thanks for the call, Connor.
I would hope not.
I hope that's not his thought process.
I think the thought process.
I actually heard that earlier today. A friend, sorry to cut you off. A friend texted me like, "Do you think Tatum might did this just to show that they can't win without him, or they can't win with Jalen?"
That's certainly possible.
First of all, he's right. if that was his approach, but I hate that. If that was even a thought in his mind, I hate that. He needs to be a guy that wants to play every game. And if his mentality is, I'm going to bag out of this game just to prove a point that they can't win without me, then he's the one that might need to go. He might be the one that he's not going to be your number one guy. He's not going to win you enough games at the highest level that you need. If he's a guy that's going to bag out of a game 7 just to put it all on the shoulders of his teammate and say, good luck, buddy. And again, he was proven right if that was his approach. But if that's even part of the equation, that's a terrible sign.
No, I mean, we don't know these people on a deep personal level. Does that seem like Jason Tatum?
No. That's what makes it so confusing is that he plays. He's not a guy that bags out of anything.
Yeah, until he tore his Achilles. And
so you think maybe that changed him to the point, like he laid it on pretty thick in the documentary, so maybe it did.
Yeah, I do.
Maybe it did change him to the point that he's now rethinking whether I want to play every night.
I think the coaching staff told him, like, look, there's nothing physically, structurally wrong here. I mean, the training staff. And he was probably like, but if I do X, Y, and Z, can I re-hurt? Can I injure something? Can I overcompensate? And they were probably like, sure, there's a risk. And he was probably like, oh, no, can't risk it. Can't do another year of rehab. And it's like, you've been back. You've been back. And when you play sports, things are going to feel a little bit off. And let's say you're not yourself. Just by virtue of being on the floor, you make the team better. So maybe you don't have the same burst. Maybe you're not driving. Maybe you're just facilitating. Maybe you're just setting screens for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, just the presence.
Just the gravity of being out there and being Jason Tatum. Maybe you can only play 20 minutes. To completely not dress in a Game 7 when and I'm just going off what the training staff said, there was no injury. That's a bigger problem. So I don't know which one of those scenarios is better for Jason Tatum. I don't think either one's very good.
Dan in the car on the Celtics. Go ahead, Dan.
So on March 5th, right, with a little more than 76% of the season played, the Celtics were the 2 seed in the conference. Now, they get Tatum back, which presumably makes you better. But you could also argue that if he didn't come back, they most likely would have held on to the 2 seed in going into the playoffs. I'm sorry. In the NBA, 2 seeds are supposed to beat 7 seeds in the first round 99 out of 100 times. So, you know what? When you lose Tatum in Game 7, that's no excuse. You were a 2 seed up until he came back. You're supposed to win that series.
What can I add? Do you think they get up 3-1 without Tatum?
I mean, look, I've touched on the roster, the way the roster's developed over the course of the series. Embiid coming back. You got Paul George back. He got a PED suspension this year?
Yeah.
So he's back.
Games.
He's back. I mean, he looks spry out there.
I'm saying just look at Tatum. Game 1, 25, 11, and 7. Game 3, 25, 5, and 7. And then the other game they won, Game 4, 30, 7, and 11. Like, he was their best player. You might lose in 5 without him. So I agree. Yeah, you probably would have been the 2 seed. It shows you how meaningful that is, that you probably would have lost anyway.
Right. I think they didn't really miss his shoot. Like, they missed his other things outside of the scoring. Ironically, last night. They missed the rebounding, the defense, and the facilitating because they don't really have an option to fill those roles without him. I think it showed his value to the team. And so maybe it was in the back of his mind that I'm going to prove these guys how valuable I am.
No.
I doubt that. I really hope not. But I think that just speaks to how weird of a situation that is.
Well, I think
and how murky and mysterious that whole thing is.
I think the real shame of it all, and it reared its head again. You know, these guys take too many threes because when they lose in the playoffs and miss a ton of threes, it's inevitably going to be the main talking point. But they had discovered a different way to play this year, and that's really sort of the tragedy's too strong. But you know where I'm going. They developed a different way to play with Jaylen Brown as the main ball handler. And Tatum comes back, and like I said, he's setting screens at the top of the key for Jaylen Brown, and the ball's moving, and they're working off that screen, and there's someone open every possession because of the way those two worked with each other. And it was honestly beautiful. And then you get to the playoffs, and you face a little adversity, and you go back to just sort of the chuck and duck.
Yeah, that's been my concern with this team generally is that it gets tight, it gets low scoring. We talked about this last time we were on the air. It's like I don't trust them in a close game. Like I think they were barely over 500 in games decided by 3 points or less. I know they lost by 9 last night, but like that situation last night, fourth quarter, 3.5 minutes left, you're down only 1. You're making progress, you're making plays at the defensive end, and then that's how you respond on the offensive end. Like unacceptable, unconscionable. Speaks to a lack of coaching, but I think it also speaks to players that just lack poise in those situations. And so, honestly, you want to talk about any kind of major changes, big moves, a culture change, anything, I'm open to anything. I put anything on the table because I think it's obvious that something big needs to change with the team. And speaking of that, we're going to go to Michael in Natick, who has a big-time idea in the offseason. What's up, Mike?
Hey, fellas. Good afternoon. I called Felger and Maz when Tatum first came back, and then Jimmy agreed with me. If Luka Doncic can be traded, anybody in the league can be traded. Nobody's off the table. Luka is by far the biggest star, most talent, and he was traded overnight. There was no build-up, no rumors of it. So the same can happen for Tatum. I mean, Tatum, he bagged out of a Game 7. Let's call it what it is. The team has been together for a decade now. They got 1 championship out of it. Say what you want about Jaylen Brown. He shows up. And if he is Scottie Pippen, so be it. Scottie Pippen didn't win without Jordan, but he showed up. And Tatum is not Jordan. So there are teams in the league that are desperate for ticket sales, wins, just to, sneak into the playoffs. Trade Tatum for draft picks. Get the biggest package you can. He's closer to 30 than he is 20. He's coming off injury. Now these injuries or psychological effects from the injuries are having him bag out of a Game 7. Green teamers will be fine. They'll complain right now and say, I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. But if that trade happens, Brad Stevens gets the biggest trade we've seen in however many years, green teamers will then jump on board and say, this is a great play, great move. If Luka can be traded, Tatum can be traded. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I mean, I'm with him on the point that I'm not above trading anybody. But you trade Tatum for draft picks, you're resetting. You're not going to win a championship with what you have right now. So if they wanted to trade Tatum, like you said, Luka Doncic, if they want to make that the Luka Doncic equivalent, then you better be having the draft rigged for you so you get the number 1 pick. Like that's what I would hope for if they're going to trade Tatum. My only thing with trading Tatum or Brown really is the value you get back in return. I don't know that what you get in return for those guys is going to match the value of just having those 2 guys. And so I think ultimately if you make me pick like what do I want the major change to be, I think keep Tatum and Brown, but trade Derek White for front court help, bring in guys that have a little more experience and a little more toughness, and make a coaching change. Make a change, a guy that is going to make the in-game adjustments, is going to focus on defense, has experience in these kinds of spots, and has the kind of aptitude or whatever you want to call it for a coach that you need at this time of year. I feel like those are more realistic, and I feel like those changes could put them back on a championship trajectory without trading Tatum or Brown. What do you think, Hurley?
You have to hope, and I agree with part of what the caller just said. The tapping out of a Game 7 is bad. But you have to hope with Jason Tatum that it's temporary and part of his recovery. You have to hope that he is in a fragile mental state right now, understandably fearing missing another year if he goes out there and does something wrong. I totally understand it. I do think you have to play in a Game 7. I don't think you can just sit there and watch in your street clothes and Matt, laugh with Joel Embiid after the game. I know we're old and the NBA is too soft now and everyone's friends. It looks so bad to be laughing with the other team when you didn't play. Like, call me old, call me crazy, whatever. Like, Kobe Bryant would be, I don't know, punching a wall at the time. You know, like that level of competitor needs to have some sort of that. So I agree, like that's a thing. But let's do a role reversal. If Brown missed most of this year and Tatum was your guy, are you telling me they wouldn't have won 56 games?
Right.
I think they probably would have.
They're over 60 if they had Tatum and Brown help.
And I think if you look at those on-off numbers, like maybe they're hard to explain, but you can't ignore them. The Celtics were a minus 23 with Jaylen Brown on the floor in this series. So I don't think you're in a better spot if you have just Brown and not Tatum. I don't know that this core, it's similar to, remember when the Bucks won? What was that, 21? You watch Giannis dominate, you're like, they're going to win the next 5 championships. They haven't sniffed it since. You watch the year Jokic and Jamal Murray won. You're like, they're going to win the next 5 championships. They can't get back there. They can't get out of the first or second round. You watch Tatum and Brown, you're like, now is their time. Now's their time to have their dynasty. And here you are a couple years later after losses to the Knicks and the Sixers. You didn't lose. When they lost to the Warriors, you could kind of say, you know what? They're at the end of their dynasty. Those guys have incredible playoff experience. Understandable, you let that one slip away. The Knicks and the Sixers? The Knicks, who literally named streets after the Knicks last year because they won a playoff series for the first, like a meaningful playoff series, then made it past the second round for the first time since the 90s. The Sixers, who haven't beaten the Celtics since 82. You lose to Paul George and Joel Embiid in a Game 7?
I was there with John and Most.
This is this. We need to look at the way they look at the way we look at the two of those guys. We do need to look at them differently. I agree with that. I'm not on board with, shipping Jason Tatum out just for the sake of it.
617-779-0985. We're up against it, folks. For Hurley, I think it's time to finally cleanse the palate of the Celtics. I think we've covered all the bases at this point. Now we've finally talked about Tatum. I want to talk about the Bruins next break.
Okay.
Is that, if you're okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some Bruins. If you're a Bruins fan out there, you want to join the conversation, get in with us. 617-779-0985. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
on their bench start to high five and come out onto the ice to celebrate as they win Game 6 here at TD Garden 4-1 and take the series 4 games to 2 as the Bruins come out off of their bench and go and congratulate Jeremy Swayman on what was a terrific series for him. Unfortunately, it was not enough. Buffalo ends the Bruins season here on their home ice. Sabres win all 3 games here at TD Garden in this series.
98.5 The Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley with you until 5 o'clock. And I couldn't get through the day without touching on this, Hurley. Man, leave it to the Bruins in a season where you talk about the Celtics. Like, I think a lot of people expected the Celtics to make the playoffs. I think a lot of people realistically thought the Bruins wouldn't make the playoffs, and I think that was a fair assumption considering the way they put that roster together. And I thought my expectation was just like be in that mix for the wild card, be in that wild card hunt, which, even if they lost a few more games down the stretch, they would have at least been in the hunt. Ty Anderson, the great Bruins guy here at the Sports Hub and my co-host on the Sports Hub Underground podcast. Check that out. A new episode coming on that this week. He had them as the first team out of the playoffs. And so leave it to this team to get to the playoffs when in a year that nobody expected them to make it and still find a way to disappoint us. They lose all 3 games at home to the Buffalo Sabres. I wanted to look up the combined score, but I know they scored 3 goals total in the 3 home games. The way they played at home was just horrid. I was there all 3 games. Obviously, Game 4 was embarrassing.
13-3.
They get outscored 13-3 on their home ice. Home ice advantage is not a thing in the NHL. I don't think. I feel like even especially like a Game 7, I'd rather be the road team at this point. I don't think it's just a Bruins thing, but I do think the nervous energy and the crowd and the noise and it gets to them sometimes, and I have a hard time blaming them because it's a thing in all that. I feel like the Sabres even had some of that.
Yeah, but they should have blown game. I mean, the Bruins blew Game 1 in Buffalo, but it should have been a 2-0 Bruins lead.
Yeah, I feel like the Sabres were a little tight in their own building, and that was a raucous crowd in that game, first playoff game that they got to have in years.
15 years.
And so, over a decade. But yeah, like, leave it to the Bruins to still find a way to somehow fall woefully short of expectations. And look, there's a lot of problems here. I think the main problem is still up front on the roster. I think it's offensively because the defensive problems, those weren't new. They were having trouble clearing the puck out of their zone, covering the front of their net, turning the puck over at the worst possible times. Like, those problems existed in the regular season, and they simply carried over. The offensive issues were not there in the regular season. They were surprisingly good offensively, top 10 in goals scored. David Pastrnak gets another 100-point season in a year that he adjusts to being a playmaker, which I think it sounded like it was sort of a directive from Marco Sturm. It's like, you got to make the other guys better this year because we need to get offense wherever he can get it. Pastrnak says, okay. And he gets 29 goals and 71 assists. So, like, I thought it was a great year for him. I think he needs help. And, like, I know that I'm not, and I mean, by help, I mean other players around him on the roster, not professional help. Maybe he does. I don't know.
We could all use some of that.
But look, for all the talk of, like, they got to get rid of Pastrnak. Pasternak's not the guy. He's not, like, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't think an offensive-minded right wing should be the identity of your team. I don't believe that. And I think Pastrnak just happens to be their best player because he's one of the best pure scorers in the National Hockey League, whether he's scoring or setting people up. I think pure offense, he's one of the best in the league. He just happens to be right wing and play right wing, and he doesn't do a lot of the little things as well as you want him to do. He's not consistent in that area. He turns the puck over a lot. And so, like, there's a lot of holes you could poke in his game, but if you're saying trade him, be careful what you wish for, because I feel like you trade him, we're going to get to a year from now and say, oh, how they can't score. How they got to get some goal scorers. It's like, well, you just got rid of the best guy you had. And so Pastrnak was talking about it, I think it was right after the game, saying, look, man, I'm about to turn 30. I want to win. Like, it's nice to get to the playoffs, but I want to get a little farther here. And I have a hard time holding too much of that against him because he showed up in those last 2 games. He had the game winner in that Game 5, a great move in overtime. And I thought he played well enough in Game 6. I thought he was one of the few guys that showed the kind of jump you're looking for to respond to that last home game, which was one of the worst games they've ever played in TD Garden. Look, a right wing needs every right wing, even a guy as good as David Pastrnak needs a center. He needs a real center next to him, and he just hasn't had that. Elias Lindholm hasn't even been close to what they need. Pavel Zacha's not quite good enough. I don't know where they get it. Maybe James Higgins turns into that guy. But either way, like, if they want to win in this window, which is getting dangerously close to closing early, they need to make major additions to the roster, major changes. They need to build around Pastrnak because I don't think getting rid of him is the answer if they want to win right now.
Yeah, and I would think people you mentioned it earlier today, that outlooks and expectations can change as things go on. And so this Bruins team, to your point, had built up expectations and probably should have performed better in the playoffs. Not necessarily win the series, but not completely no-show on home ice in Game 4. That was the 6-0 deficit before they lose 6-1.
I should have said also, like, nobody expected them to actually win this series. I expect them to just be competitive in the series.
And they were to a degree, and they should have been better.
And they got to a Game 6, so it's like, at the end of the day, are you that disappointed they got to a Game 6 against one of the best teams in the conference?
But I guess
not, but the way it looked, the way they played at home, the series wasn't as competitive as the fact that they played 6 games would indicate.
I just want to go back to the early part of the year. You'd go to a game in October, November, December, and every time you'd go to a Bruins game, you'd be like, there's a new player I've never heard of today playing for the Boston Bruins. And that's where you're sort of saying there's no way this is a playoff team. So on the one hand, they did. I agree with anyone that would say they did basically squeeze every ounce out of this roster. Like, I think a playoff spot, a moderately competitive first round series, is about as well as they should have done. But that's going to be a problem going forward if you don't address these things that you're talking about. Like an overachieving year, great. I don't think you want to roll back out a year. And like some of these guys outperformed. Like I thought Husnudinov ended up being pretty good. I think to a degree,
he's a good player. I like Husnudinov. I think he could be a core guy going forward.
Like Asamont was okay at times, but you don't want to be that team that just scrappy fights your way, impressively gets in as a wild card. You need to be better. You need to bulk up. I mean, look at you had 100 points. You couldn't be in the top 3 in your division. Like they have a long way to go in the roster building. Do they have the flexibility to do it? Do they have the creativity to do it? Are they going to get that draft pick? Are they going to get it?
That's a good one, too.
Tuesday night, I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed. 617-779-0985. I got to try my best to get back on the clock here. We're going to continue the Bruins discussion when we come back. Quick break here. Matt Dolloff, Michael Hurley on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
constantly. And it could also be the final scene of Fight Club, where Boston is just watching buildings explode and crumble around us right now. That's what it feels like. We haven't even touched on the other two teams in town. We don't have to. But between the Celtics blowing it, the Bruins embarrassing themselves, and the Red Sox, they ironically might have been eliminated before even the Bruins and Celtics. And then on top of that, you got the whole Mike Vrabel drama, which thankfully there's been nothing new on that front last couple of days. We haven't had to touch on Vrabel at all, which I think is a blessing that we haven't had to touch on that. But yeah, that has started to infect the football operation. I thought it was interesting that the players have sort of stood up for Vrabel publicly. Anyway, I don't know if they're covering up for any kind of behind the scenes friction, but it feels like Vrabel still has the room together, which I think was, the concern that you would have after that.
Even I saw a clip, I couldn't even tell you where it was from. Christian Gonzalez talking the other day saying, we'll keep that private, what he said to us, but, I roll with him, I play for him. Yeah. I think that's a guy that we sort of say isn't cut from the same cloth as Mike Vrabel.
Right.
And they maybe got off to an odd start last year with the hamstring injury, but by the end of the year, I think they had an understanding of each other. I think the fact that Christian Gonzalez, who's out there wanting the new deal, wanting the money, as he showed us at a Celtics game a month ago, is, backing his coach, and that's it does speak well to that locker room vibe right now. And I think that's important because it does, from the outside, it started to make you wonder, is this gonna cost them next year? Are they going to be worse because of this? When it first broke, you're kind of like, all right, it's a thing. And then it just kept getting worse and snowballing, and multiple press conferences and multiple and missing the draft and all these things. And you're kind of just like, is this going to cost them a year? If instead of winning 10, 11 games, are they going to win 7 or 8 because of just sort of the wrong vibes after a year where everything went right and they were charmed? But I would say you're right. The past week has probably been a stabilizing one.
Yeah, so you still wonder if Vrabel can really carry himself the same way behind the scenes and have that same swagger, Is he going to come out and get into it with reporters after all that? Or I don't know. He might have to be a little more gracious publicly, and then behind the scenes, we talked about this last time we were on together a couple weeks ago, that can you really have the same message of accountability and all that? But if he's holding himself accountable behind the scenes and he's holding things together, then I feel a little bit better about it. If Gonzalez was coming out and be like, yeah, we'll keep all that private. But it didn't say anything about we ride with Coach Vrabes.
Yeah.
Drake May was at a charity event. That was Jonathan Hall, I think, from 7 News asked him point blank. He's like, no, we stand with Coach. So it's like they're not. And Drake May is a religious guy too, right? So it's not like you might look at Vrabel's alleged transgressions with a different eye. But it seems like he's keeping that together. So I said last night that the 2 nights ago before the Celtics Game 7 that there are only hope left for the summer. Patriots, there's still hope there. I think it's just still a long way to go. But let's circle back to the Bruins conversation we were having before, Hurley. I think the issues might go even beyond the hockey rink. I think there might be a cultural problem. I think the Bruins have a leadership problem. I think the fact that David Pastrnak wasn't a no-brainer choice to be captain was a concern going into the season, and I know people said they want it to grow naturally, they want it to happen organically. That to me still says then that's an issue because David Pastrnak wasn't a no-brainer. That's a problem to me. They might have looked at, they might have already said we don't want Pastrnak necessarily to be our captain. We want Charlie McAvoy to be our captain. We want him to seize that role. And what does McAvoy do? He plays like crap in the series, and I know he was hurt, but pretty much everybody is this time of year. He gets slew-footed. I know that was a dirty play by Zach Benson from the Sabres. He was a thorn in their side the whole series. Gets up and tomahawks him.
We almost saw Marty McSorley part 2. If the accuracy goes a little off, if he hits a bump on the ice, that is a horrific scene.
Brother, Marty McSorley, Chris Simon, the absolute worst stuff we've ever seen guys do in the NHL involves using your stick as a weapon.
And to be clear, what ended up happening was not that significant, but it's almost out of your hands at that point. When you start two-hand chopping someone like that, bad stuff can happen. What if he moves? What if someone ducks? What if someone gets pushed? What if you get pushed? What if you get bumped? So that's why he's going to get whacked with a pretty hefty suspension.
Yeah, in-person hearing, so that usually means 5 games or more. I know people have said that because it was a playoff game, it might be different because you're not talking about regular season. I I still think he's going to get 5 games. Like that's how I feel it's going to go. Not that I'm overly concerned about the first 5 games of next regular season or whatever it would be.
Didn't he get? I don't know if he got a hearing or not. Remember at the end of the series against the Blue Jackets, he like decked Josh Anderson. He got in trouble. I don't know if he got suspended though. He might have gotten.
I forget. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I wish I could remember that. That was 2019.
Yeah,
that happened.
Did anything else happen then?
No, let's not talk about that. That game 4 was the worst night for the Bruins since that game. That's how bad it felt.
Yeah,
in that building, especially with Sabres fans basically taking over the balcony. That's where I said like that. The embarrassment for this game should go all the way to the top of the organization with a development like that in TD Garden. But that, I mean, look, the culture. Charlie McAvoy said himself after that game that like maybe we think it's going to be easy for us, and I think maybe it is a little too easy for him off the ice between games. If it's easy for you off the ice, once it gets hard in the playoffs at the hardest time of the year, you're not going to be ready for it. And I just wonder if there's coddling, or I don't know how you want to describe it. I think it's a little too easy for them away from games, and maybe they realize that about themselves, and maybe they're starting to look in the mirror with that, because it's year after year with this now, the way that this team performs this time of year, especially on their home ice. It feels like you ratchet up the pressure, you dial up the intensity, and they fold. This is what has been happening every year.
Especially like late lead. You don't feel good with them with the late lead, ever.
No, you don't feel good about them with a late lead. You don't feel good about them at home. It's like it's the complete opposite of what you want from a playoff team. The problem is they sort of have to sell players to come here on you're going to be treated well. We're going to have nice facilities. We're going to take care of your family. You're going to have days off. We're not going to overwork you. Like you can't sell players. You can't sell a free agent on tax breaks coming here. You can't sell them on the weather. Like you got to sell them on like you're going to be taken care of. It's going to be nice for you. You're going to like it here. And I mean, they can't sell them on the media. They can't. We're not going to be nice to them, especially when they look at the way they did in the playoffs. Like you got to sell them on stuff like that. But if they want to win, if they want to get farther than the first round, and like a lot is made of, the ownership got their playoff gates. They got their first round. You know what's better than 3 playoff gates? More than that.
6.
More than 6, 9, 12 playoff
Let me ask you this, though, because you've been around that team all year, and it's been a topic this week. It'll continue now that it's officially over, the leadership that you mentioned. Not everyone's a captain. Like Patrice Bergeron, maybe the most perfect hockey player we've ever seen. Not necessarily a captain, more of a lead-by-example type.
Yeah.
Like I think Chara was different because Chara, and you had him for so long, he wasn't, necessarily rah-rah, but he was someone you were afraid to disappoint. You were afraid to do the wrong thing or not work hard enough around Zdeno Chara because of who he was. And it's like, you don't fault people for not being that guy. Like, I don't fault David Pastrnak because he's not Zdeno Chara. Everyone leads differently. But of those 3 guys that got the A this year, Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, and Pastrnak, obviously nobody really stepped forth and made their mark as the leader. So what do you do? Like, do you look externally to find your next leader? Do you just promote one of those guys? You can't go a second year without a captain.
No, I think they do. I think they have to. I think that's what they did with Chara. They brought Chara in and then basically immediately named him the captain. Like I think they waited until the start of the season, but I think that was the deal.
I believe
all along.
Yeah, I think Chara has even said as much. It was pretty much agreed upon in the contract.
It was agreed upon that he would be the new captain. That's what he wanted. That's what they wanted. That's what they needed. And I think that's what they need right now. And I agree with you that like I don't necessarily hold it against David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy that they're not captain material, but they're not captain material. If they're not a no-brainer, if David Pastrnak wasn't just the next guy in line and they didn't have to do this whole dog and pony show with like all 3 A's and we'll see who emerges as the captain, like that right there tells me he's not the guy. And so they got to have a different kind of setup. It doesn't have to be your best player. It doesn't have to be your longest tenured player. It has to be the guy with those qualities. And I just don't think they have enough guys with those leadership qualities. So they probably do have to look outside the organization. The example I've pointed to, talking to Ty and other people, is Ryan McDonough. And I'm not saying go get Ryan McDonough, but that sort of profile where he's not necessarily going to be your number one defenseman. He's not an elite franchise defenseman, but plays good defense, plays heavy minutes. And the Rangers had a lot of success back when they were good, when they had McDonough as their captain. And so I think he was a true captain type without being necessarily the best player on the team. I think that's what they need to do. They need to bring in a guy who can be the leader, the voice in the locker room, the tone setter, the culture changer, the guy that holds guys accountable. They need the new Chara, basically, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an elite guy, but a guy with experience who is proven in that role, who can step in, play those heavy minutes, and play that captain role. They gotta find a guy that can do that.
Let's say they can't go externally, and I would throw another name like Brad Marchand wasn't a good captain. That doesn't. He's one of the best playoff performers in Bruins history. Like it's not a knock on the player if you aren't that. But if you let's say they can't go externally, let's say they need to go. Isn't the guy that fits most of those traits Nikita Zadorov? Isn't he more captain-like than the other guys?
I think so for sure. Like talk about a guy who stands up for his teammates. He stood up for Swayman more than any other defenseman on the team, knocking guys out of the crease when they were whacking at his pads. And, he'll fight. I guess he played on a totally torn MCL. He said it was torn off the bone.
Off the bone, he said.
I don't know if it's lost in translation there. I mean, he has a different definition of off the bone, but, I don't put it past him that he wasn't, he was playing on the torn MCL. He didn't look like the same guy after the injury. But, he's a tone setter. He obviously plays the physical element. He's got the size, the presence.
He's just kind of a badass out there. Got plenty of experience.
Yeah,
I don't feud with the Islanders fans, right?
Right.
Said it was like a library.
I don't know that you want him to be the guy to be like the leading voice. I don't know if he's that guy, but he's a guy that can sort of, lean into that identity. If that's what you need. I do think you need a guy like that on your team. And so, if they were to look internally for the next captain, Zadorov is a guy I would strongly consider, if not be the guy. But look, it's not Pastrnak or McAvoy. I think that ship has sailed, and McAvoy is not. I think McAvoy. I think a weight would be off his shoulders if you told him you don't need to be the captain anymore. You'll wear an A because you're one of our best players. You've been here a while, but you just go play. We'll let the captain worry about the captain stuff. You just play, and I feel like that would help to bring in a veteran presence that take that weight off him.
And I think they really wanted McAvoy to ascend to that. That doesn't necessarily mean he wanted to. I don't know. But he proved a lot this year. He proved he's tough as hell. How many teeth did he lose? How many times did he break his jaw? He played with a broken hand these past few games. Didn't have a great finish to the season. But just because he didn't, I think it's going to be leaned on too much. These guys didn't raise up and prove that they're captains. There are only 30 of them, and half of those guys are probably miscast as captains. A great captain it's not innate with every great player you have. So I don't think it's some great failure in this experiment if you end up throwing A's at Pastrnak and McAvoy and the C goes elsewhere.
Yeah, no, it's disappointing. It's disappointing that those guys aren't what we want them to be, especially McAvoy. I think it's especially Cam Neely probably looks at him that's who he wanted to be the guy, because he goes back to Ray Bourque and then Chara after him. Was Bobby Orr the captain? I forget who the captain was. But that's traditionally... Oh, Johnny Busick was probably the captain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the tradition recently has been the defenseman has been the captain of the Bruins. So I think that's what Cam wanted. I think that's what the organization wanted. And I just don't think... Look, you said it. Charlie McAvoy, I'm not questioning his physical toughness. He's obviously a very tough player. I just don't know that he has the temperament, the personality... He runs a little hot and cold. I think you need to be a little consistent, more even keeled than he is to be a captain. And so I just don't think he has that kind. He doesn't have the personality for it. And it's nothing against him, but if I just wouldn't force it if I were the Bruins. I'd just look elsewhere. I'd go outside the organization, or I'd look elsewhere inside to find someone else who can make more sense for the role and was ready to seize it and can really have the presence you need. I just don't think McAvoy is that. 617-779-0985. We only got one more break here, but if you want to call in and get a quick call in, I'm not turning calls away. But we got one more break here. We're bringing you home. Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley, 98.5 The Sports Hub. We'll be right back.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Maz here.
98.5 The Sports Hub, Matt Dolloff and Michael Hurley. We're at the end here. We're running out of time, so we're just going to give quick closing thoughts here. Jump back in. Hurley, it's been a rough couple weeks, weird month in Boston sports. I don't know where the hope lies over the next 2 months. I feel bad for our colleagues having to do 20 hours a week on what we got to work with. I'm hoping that the managerial change sort of works out for the Red Sox because I feel like they're better off. I think Alex Cora was kind of in the way. And, I think they're probably better off with a guy who's just going to do what the nerds tell him to do. That doesn't mean they're going to be good, but that's, I think, our only hope for the summer, Hurley.
No, I think your hope is you can still go to Fenway, get a hot dog, get a beer or a soda, be nice out eventually. That's the hope. I don't think the team's going to be any good for you.
Right. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Our only hope is to have a nice little day at the ballpark.
They're about to lose, most likely, to a team that had spiraled. The Astros swept the Red Sox in late March and then ended up being 12-20.
Yeah.
And they're about to beat the Red Sox at Fenway. It's 2 out of 3.
Well, that'll do it for us today, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everybody that called in to vent on the Celtics. I think, for a guy that Celtics and basketball isn't necessarily my forte, I think we did a fairly good job, Hurley. There was a little bit of pressure on us to be the first day responders to that Celtics loss, but I think we held our own there.
I think the Celtics did most of that for us, and yes. I would say my favorite, and maybe that's the wrong word, of all those statistics I threw at you today was that the Celtics are now the second team ever to lose a series when they've won multiple games by 30 points. That will soak in all summer long.
Thanks, Hurley. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
From the Town Fair Tire Studio, this
Drive
is...
a strong finger all up and go.
This is... home of the 18-time world champion Boston Celtics.
All the way 3, Eddie hit.
WBZ-FM and HD Boston 98.5. The Sports Hub.
Corner Tobias, a long gun, it goes! Tobias Harris with a